Talk Shoes.
Recorded live.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Mr. Podcast with Claude and Justin.
Hello.
So ostensibly today we're talking about True Blood. Season 3 in particular, they've aired 4 episodes so far that have all been pretty fantastic. Waiting for the rim shot there. Thanks. Our rim shot guy needs to get paid more to be on
Sorry.
time, I guess.
He wasn't paying attention.
But, so, I guess the last Mr. Podcast was, according to our website, it was in 2009. That seems a little unbelievable to me, but, the internet doesn't lie, so.
True. Yeah.
But I guess recording Lost was probably the stuff we've been doing for the most part since our last, Battlestar Galactica podcast.
Yes. Yeah, that's the stuff we were doing in between seasons 5 and 6, but I think the final season of Lost really ate up our podcasting allotments.
Yeah, definitely.
We consistently did more than 6-7 hours for each episode, and it's just hard to do more than that, when you've also got other stuff going on.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we didn't really bring it back. And I think also after we finished the finale podcast, which was 35 hours roughly.
No need to brag.
Yeah, some of you may have heard that. If not, go listen to it. It's good.
We dare you.
And
where could they listen to it at?
They can go to thelostlowdown.com, and it's there on the page. Or you can look up The Lost Lowdown at iTunes. It's on there as well. Subscribe to our feed if you want.
That was actually a trick question. No one wants to listen to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I should have known, but whatever. Pointless plugs then. So anyway, after that long podcast, I think it was time for a little break. That was really intense, the most podcasting I've ever done in a short period of time, and I think now I'm sort of refreshed and ready to talk about stuff again.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still not ready to go back to Lost. As much as I have the urge to just start rewatching all of it from the beginning, I also sort of want to forget things, I think, to a certain degree. And refresh all that. So it's nice to be podcasting again, but not about Lost. But we'll be shortly podcasting about it, probably around the time the complete series comes out, which is I think next month, October 21st. So
August.
All right, that's what I meant, August 21st. And but so True Blood this season, I mean. Season 1 was good. Season 2 was better. Season 3 is off to a pretty awesome start. There's so much plot going on. It's sort of ridiculous. They've got enough for 2 shows here.
Yeah. It's been a really plot-packed season, I guess. I think I remember season 2 being a little slow at the beginning. It took a little bit for everything to get going.
Yeah.
And I think they also had to take care of that Fellowship of the Sun subplot. I remember that taking a while to work itself out. I didn't really know what the point of that was for a while.
That was probably, because I feel like I still don't know what the point of that was. So I feel like that was one of the lesser storylines in terms of what it ultimately ended up being. I mean, the final sort of scene with that. Well, yeah, I would say the end of that was really the confrontation in the church, and Godric reveals himself, and he says he doesn't want to hurt the people, and then the Dallas vampires come in, and he makes them stop and all that, and then, things kind of get resolved, but you don't really know what it was all about, and then they kind of have a little epilogue of, the sort of post-fellowship stuff with Godric actually killing himself and Sookie
Right.
watching, and then the bombing of his little place there, and you know, and all that stuff. But that was probably one of the, in terms of writing, I just, you know, it seems pretty weak that they had this whole storyline about Godric being kidnapped by vampire haters, and it turns out he turned himself over. But you never really got why, outside of this weird notion of peace between the two, between humans and vampires. It just didn't make any sense that he didn't think about the repercussions of his going missing like that, and not telling Eric, hey buddy, I'm gonna let them kidnap me, don't come find me. And you know, it was just weird, but But, you know, season 2 was way more about Marianne in the end and all that. And so all that stuff was phenomenal.
Yes, yeah. And if there's anything that's different, or I think the biggest thing about this season is I don't think there's any characters that are as strong as Marianne was.
No. By the way, spoiler alert, I don't know, should we say that at some point? You know, obviously if you haven't seen True Blood, you probably don't want to listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
But, that goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, you know, because we're
this is
spoiling things.
Up to episode 4 of season 3, everything is on the table.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no one who is as powerful as Marianne explicitly in terms of, you know, sheer power and ability, but really in terms of character either. You know, there's a lot of characters doing a lot of stuff. I think that's how they're making up for that.
I agree. Yeah,
how do
you sort of need like 3 or 4 characters to make up for one Marianne.
How do you top a Maynard? You know, you really can't.
Yeah,
unless Dionysus himself is going to show up on the show. You know, I don't know how you can top a Maynard.
Right. Yeah, which I was still holding out hope for up to the end.
Yeah, I knew they weren't going to do that.
I did too, but somehow I thought maybe they would.
Yeah.
Still, though, what they did was really crazy.
It was really
crazy. And
I
still want to know what the fuck Hoyt's mom was talking about.
When she said that Marianne's going to be in for a surprise and all that. And, you know, I don't know. It's like, I can kind of understand what she's talking about. I just don't know why she would say that.
Yeah.
Because she shouldn't know what is going to happen in terms of, obviously, Marianne did get a big surprise.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean, though. You're right. I mean, they're telling us something like along the lines of what actually happened, but yeah, why does she know that? She's like a zombied out, you know, Marianne follower minion person at that point. Like
technical title, yeah.
I mean, I don't really know what to call that. What they had, it was weird. It was a little inconsistently portrayed what that was.
It got weird. That episode when they went from being sort of mindless, just interested in violence and sex,
pure
and visceral like things.
Yeah,
it went from that to being like, well, they kind of have their old personality too.
Yeah,
you know, that whole sequence when what's his name? Not Hoyt.
Jesse? No, Terry.
Terry, yeah, when Terry becomes Terry, you know, and he starts leading the people and he gets all his military leadership stuff, and it was just weird. It worked in terms of they really needed someone to sort of do that kind of stuff in terms of, you know, giving that group, that gang of Marianne followers some sort of direction,
right,
and misdirection, you know, in terms of, you know, having Sam escape and all that stuff, all the stuff that was going on. Like, they kind of needed something like that, but it was just weird that the way they got it was by really giving the people sort of their personalities back.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the same time being, you know, following Marianne, and then the other thing that was weird about that when Jason pretends to be the god who comes and you know, all that stuff, which is like I love that setup, but the idea that they witnessed the god who comes and nobody thought to tell Marianne, hey, leader, you know, hey, Marianne, the person we're following, you're the one who told us how great it is that the God who comes. Maybe,
right.
you know, he already came. You missed it. Sorry. You know, like,
yeah.
You know, like they were just, they didn't really, I don't know, it was weird.
Yeah.
But.
I mean, they told her eventually.
Yeah,
but
after the fact, they were like, yeah, you just, you know, it's like
the
a
God
kid
came.
waiting.
Hey,
It's
it
like
was great.
it's like a kid waiting for Santa Claus to come on Christmas, and he wakes up, and his parents have opened all the presents, and I was like, yeah, you missed Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
We just ate all the cookies with him. Yeah. He let us pick out what presents we wanted, and, you know, like.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I did enjoy that Jason bit with the sticks and the gas mask and the flares.
Yeah.
That was the silliest scene on True Blood I think I've seen so far.
It was pretty crazy.
It was a little bit like zombie movie-esque. Like they had like the group, even though they got their personalities back, like they were kind of bumbling when they were hanging out at the bar. Like, because they all went out. Okay, we'll go outside, and then they come back in.
They went outside just to come back in. It's like, yeah, all right. It wasn't the best writing, but it was, you know, it's still good. But it it was contrived because they had to get certain people in certain places. But I thought it was a very good way to reveal Sam's ability, his shape-shifting ability to Andy
that was great.
And Jason.
That was great. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed watching all that stuff. It just didn't. It came together really straight. Like there was just a little bit of a sort of claiming kind of thing going on with it, where they didn't totally make clear how much of the original person is there.
Still. Claiming in terms of Lost.
Yeah, in terms of Lost.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. I feel like they pulled back on it a little bit to suit, whatever they wanted to do with the story. How much it controlled them, or she was controlling them. Because I remember the other scene that I found a little weird was when Arlene. Is it Arlene?
Yeah, Arlene.
Okay, you got me wanting to say Darlene.
Yeah, now I know it's Arlene.
Yeah. When Arlene and Terry surprised Jason and Andy, and is it Jason and Andy?
Yep.
No. It's Lafayette and Tara, I think. And Lafayette offers them some drugs.
Oh, the drugs, yeah.
Right?
It's not Lafayette. It's Lafayette and Sookie.
Oh, it's Lafayette and Sookie. Okay, that's right.
They're about to go to Sookie's house and confront Marianne, and then Arlene and Terry come down from the tree. Why they were sitting up in the tree, we'll never know. I assume Kissing, but I don't know. But they come down from the tree, and then Lafayette distracts them with the drugs, which I don't know if they actually get, because he throws them in the ground and they never pick them up. They just kind of fall in. I don't know what was going on.
Well, he starts laying them on the ground like a breadcrumb trail or something.
Yeah, to get them away.
Yeah, and but the only thing that bothered me about it was at first Arlene's like, "Ooh, drugs! I don't do that." Like, that's lame or that's bad. Like, basically an Arlene response.
Totally. And then Terry's response was like, no, drugs are cool. These can be cool, baby. And she's like, oh, okay.
She's like, okay.
I think didn't he say something like it makes the sex better or something?
Yes.
And then so she was like, okay, I can, and then it goes back to a Marianne, follower response of,
exactly.
Oh, okay, I like that. Then if
that's what I want.
Yeah.
But the fact that she had that tinge of, oh no, I don't want to do drugs. Like that's really weird.
It's so, but really, in terms, what is writing? It's it's conflict, right? And so that's a bit of conflict for her to say no and Terry to have to convince her.
Yeah.
But it is weird that it's it's conflict coming from the Arlene character, not the sort of Arlene follower.
Exactly.
Character.
Yeah, because it seems like her character as a follower of Marianne would be, I want to do the pleasurable thing.
Yeah, and that's what's weird is it seems like drugs was such a specific thing that she has such a decided opinion on that it went through to her core.
Yeah, exactly.
But killing people, she's fine with that.
Yeah. Somehow that's less of a deal.
Yeah, drugs, and if somebody was like, let's cheat on our taxes, she would have been like, oh, no way, Jose. I am not cheating on my taxes.
Hold it there, buddy.
Yeah.
This far, no further.
Listen, I'll tear someone's heart out, but I am not cheating Uncle Sam.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, when you dig into the details, there are problems. Nonetheless, on the whole, it was great,
Spectacular.
I was so much fun to watch the town just degenerate and basically become, by the end, it's just the whole town is kind of under her sway.
Mm-hmm.
And she's trying to hold this ritual, and we find out a little bit about what Sookie can do, and it was just
that was the ultimate hand in the face, right?
Yeah,
the ultimate talk to the hand. It was just insane. No one has done a better talk to the hand than Sookie.
You're right. I never thought of that as a talk to the hand.
It's a total talk to the hand. Yeah,
it was.
I love that. That is so great. And then then Marianne built that meat tree, and then Sookie knocks that over with her powers. Yeah.
And Marianne's like, what are you?
What are you? She says that 5 times. What are you?
Yeah, it's great because she never finds out.
She never finds out. Nope.
But she threw that out there, and I think that's still a question that, I feel like I want to say, to bring it back to season 3, that part of the interest in Sookie might have to do with whatever she is.
Well, it has to be. I mean, and of course, Eric has made numerous references to, Sookie being way more valuable and important than, a regular human would be, and you never really know why exactly he thinks that, if it's just her telepathy or if it's more that he's sensing or knows intrinsically that she is whatever she is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely something to do with what she, and I think that's been one of the, True Blood has just made, one of the reasons I love the show is they just make a lot of great, interesting choices. That obviously, a lot of the stuff comes from the books, but I judge it as a TV show.
Yeah.
But the fact that the main character does have, starts out being a telepath, that's already interesting.
Yeah.
Not that she's a normal human in a world of vampires. She's a special human in a world of vampires and almost anything else you can think of, probably.
Yeah.
So they make all these really smart, interesting choices with what they're doing, and on top of that, you've got this mystery about what Sookie really is, and it's not just that she's a telepath; she's got something else going on too.
Right.
And the show is just not, True Blood is just not content to be another vampire story. It's not content to just take what we know from Anne Rice and rehash it. They consistently show us new stuff that, I've never seen before from vampire stories. And sort of like supernatural horror kind of stories, and that's what's cool. They keep raising the bar and breaking barriers with their storytelling, and it's pretty rare to see that. And I have to hand it to Alan Ball because I know he's used to writing television like that from 6 Feet Under.
Mm-hmm.
But and of course the other writers on the show. But it's got a lot of good stuff. And season 3 is off to an awesome start. I don't really know where it's going exactly. I can't imagine what the end of the season's gonna look like.
Yeah. Me either. But I think I had a similar thing in season 2.
Mm-hmm.
It really wasn't clear at this point. Like episode 4, I don't think it was clear where the season was going.
Yeah.
But we'll probably know. In maybe 4 more episodes, we'll probably be able to tell more about where the season's going. But at this point, the plot's going in so many directions. It's hard to tell what the big thing's going to be.
Yeah. All right, so you wanna sort of get into the episode discussion. So we're not gonna go scene by scene or anything like that. This is Mr. Podcast, so we're gonna play it faster and looser than our Lost Lowdown Lost podcast.
Yeah.
So if we get little details wrong or forget things, you'll have to excuse us because we haven't prepared as much as we would have for a Lost Lowdown podcast.
Right. Yeah. It's not that level of detail we're going into.
Yeah, no. So, all right, so, the first episode, I mean, we don't have to go episode by episode in terms of what we're going to talk about, but I will say, overall, I thought the first 2 episodes were probably the best so far, maybe because they have the most crazy stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I definitely enjoyed seeing the stuff with Bill getting kidnapped by the werewolves at the beginning when they're in the car ride, and I mean that's one of the first crazy scenes of the season.
Yeah.
You're just like, what am I watching? You got these vampires, half naked, sucking on Bill's blood and getting off on it, and just being in sort of just insane, and you're like, what now?
Right.
Yeah,
that's not when Bill got kidnapped at the end of season 2. That's not really what I envisioned. I thought it was going to be more like ruthless, slick professionals that kidnapped him.
Yeah, exactly.
Not this like weird group of, and I guess that's one of the big things this season is the werewolves. Yeah,
it's introducing werewolves into the show, and specifically this werewolf pack that is under the leadership of the King of Mississippi.
Yes.
Which is a special thing that we have found out by this point, that obviously werewolves don't sort of follow around, take vampires as leaders, but this guy is giving him their blood.
Right.
Which makes them all the more dangerous and powerful.
Yes. Yeah. So they're simultaneously telling us what the world of werewolves is like typically, and showing us kind of a deviation from that.
Mm-hmm.
Where we have the werewolves who kidnap Bill are part of this, like you said, this group that follows the King of Mississippi and does his bidding basically, and
yes.
It looks like this has been going on for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like some werewolves didn't really know about it, or that it's growing or something.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like it's growing, and it definitely seems like they didn't know that the king was sort of leading this pack. They knew that this new pack had a different way of doing things, but
yeah.
But the fact that the king's involved seems pretty.
Yeah, I guess that's what they're showing us in this is a kind of a recruitment scene where they initiate the it's that guy's wife, right? Or ex-wife or something.
Ex-girlfriend. Yeah.
Ex-girlfriend. Okay, yeah. The ex-girlfriend of what's his name?
Alcide.
Alcide. Thank you.
I can't remember that. It's such a normal name.
I should be able to remember it more because it's so strange, but they don't. It seems like they don't say it a lot, or maybe I just don't understand when they do. I look at that and I want to say Alcide.
Yeah.
I think that's what messes me up.
Well, the E at the end would make you think you say I instead of E.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, exactly. Alcide. So anyway, Alcide's ex-girlfriend gets initiated into this group that's following this guy, and so she gets the little tattoo, and we sort of see I think it also shows the idea that they're actively bringing new people in.
Mhm. And really, it's people who are either are already addicted to V or want the V. I mean, that's definitely the sort of, it's really a cult based on this drug, really.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but it's from Alcide's dialogue. It comes across like it's not typical for werewolves to want to do that.
Yeah, he's got that big line, I guess, in the 4th episode, maybe the 3rd, but I think in the 4th, where he says, werewolves have lived in Mississippi for 200 years and no humans knew it.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, you got these new these new werewolves who are sort of, rocking the boat, as it were, in terms of their secrecy.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think the big thing about werewolves, not the big thing, but a thing that I've noticed so far is that they seem to be weaker than vampires.
Definitely.
And I think, having them following a vampire just, further illustrates that. But in the battles we see, they just seem to be outmatched. And I think, I'm a little bit disappointed about that. Going back to season 2, I thought it was great when Bill tries to attack Marianne and, just starts getting violently sick from biting her, so it's he really can't do much to her.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the she's more powerful than he is.
Yeah. I mean, the werewolves are basically, from how they've depicted them, really, they are basically shapeshifters who only shapeshift into wolves.
Yeah.
Which makes them sort of less interesting than shapeshifters.
Right.
They're less interesting than Sam and Sam's brother, and I guess their mother.
Yeah.
But it's to me, it's fine. Whatever level of power they have, so far they've been interesting characters, so it's fine. But it is, just in terms of objectively looking at the power structure, they definitely seem weaker, and I think that's another reason on a sort of character level for the pack that's following the king is they're doing it because they get power, they get stronger from the V, so that's another reason for them to follow this guy.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting thing that True Blood has done that I haven't really seen with vampires before, which is the idea that vampire blood is a drug.
And that was in season 1 that I thought was one of the first big things that I really liked about True Blood was the idea that not only is vampire blood a drug, but different blood from different vampires are like strains of that drug, and they have varying, slightly different characteristics. And of course, the older the vampire, the stronger it is. And so having that sort of fleshed out, pun intended, in terms of the drugs, was pretty interesting. Yeah, using vampire blood as a drug, and it actually has some sort of effect and value in non-vampires. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's hallucinations, there's certain it sort of increases sex drive or something. It kind of
it can heal you.
It seems to heal you. Yeah, it maybe makes you stronger. It just has all sorts of, and so it's interesting that there's this black market. They introduced that in season 1, like you said, of selling this stuff. Someone has to get it from a vampire, and I guess typically you have something like more like either a vampire willingly surrendering their blood, like the guy that Lafayette was seeing, or you have someone actually holding them against their will and taking it from them, which is what happens to Bill this season. Because there's a certain power that goes with it. Someone has your blood, that you get connected to that vampire.
Yeah, and I think that's the other cool thing True Blood has is there's consequences to the blood. And I guess it seems like if you drink from them, you are connected to them. And I guess I'd have to surmise that if you just drink a little bit, because if you get it and you're doing it like a drug, then you're not going to be connected to that vampire, because I feel like that's a little weird. But they haven't really shown that, everyone who drank from a vampire, everyone who got V from a vampire, like that vampire consents them. I don't think that that's true. But I feel like obviously they showed that if you drink from them directly and it's a lot, then you will be connected to them.
Right. Well, in Sookie's case, I think she didn't even have a lot. She specifically, tried not to have any, and it was just a little got in, and that was enough. But maybe that's just because Eric is old.
Not only is he powerful, but she drank directly from him. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that has something to do with it.
As opposed
in vampire stuff in general, usually that to make somebody a vampire, they have to drink from you and all that.
Yeah.
So that's usually connected. That sort of intimate kind of connection, bodily fluid transfer.
Mm-hmm.
It would just be weird to me if everyone who had half of a thimble full, because remember, that's what they said in season 1 is, the hit of V, you're supposed to have a very, very small amount anyway.
Yes.
And I feel like everyone who's done V in the world really shouldn't be connected to those vampires. That's just kind of weird. Because then anyone who does V is susceptible to that vampire coming to kill them at some point.
Right.
If they can track them down and sense where they are, then it's like anyone who does V could just be killed by that vampire at some point for doing V. So that's, story-wise, to me, that's not good. But
yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. That was the problem I originally had with the Sookie thing. I guess I don't understand, like, if if a vampire cuts themselves, pours it into a glass and gives it to you versus you just drinking it from their vein, I don't really see why there should be a difference. I mean, it's the same stuff,
Well, I mean,
maybe it's just a freshness thing. But
I think it's just a metaphysical, supernatural explanation. Like the same reason, why does a vampire have to sleep with the person it's trying to turn?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. Why can't a vampire enter someone's house unless they invite them in?
All right, yeah.
You know what I mean? There's some things that are that's just what it is.
Okay.
And it doesn't really have any sort of real answer in the real world. It's just that's how the story is. So I figured that'd be the same explanation.
Yeah. Okay. I'll buy that. I think that works better. I mean, that was,
Yeah.
It would be ridiculous if everybody who's using it just had some connection to whatever random vampire
Yeah,
it came
exactly.
from.
That would just be, story-wise, that just muddles things, I think.
Yeah. So you're probably right. I mean, the cases where they've actually shown it, it's been the direct drinking going on.
Mm-hmm. Which is my favorite kind of drinking.
Yeah. And if they wanted to, I guess they could say it's like, when it touches the air, it loses certain property. They could have some weird thing that sort of explains that.
Yeah.
Although, the house thing still bothers me.
The what thing?
The house thing, letting you in.
Oh, the let you in thing?
Yeah. I can't. I mean, I accept it, and it's cool, but I can never make it make logical sense of it.
I think it's the same thing to me that, I mean, if you think about the vampire in general, why does it have blood yet its heart doesn't beat? Like why is there blood? What is the blood doing and how is it doing anything? It's just kind of like there's the creation of the vampire has some supernatural aspects to it that are just fundamental, and one of them happens to be this entering a house thing.
Yeah.
It just it's like cats not liking water or something. It's just some weird property that's intrinsic to it, and they have a couple of things like that. The being allergic to silver. I mean, obviously something like that you could have some physical explanation for, but since a vampire was just human, it's like, well, humans aren't allergic to silver. Why would a vampire be allergic to silver?
Mm-hmm.
There's changes. So some things supernatural things you can give real world explanations to, and some things are that's just a vampire, and that's all you got.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it doesn't really bother me that much. I guess just because I think sometimes the show gives you a kind of down to earth explanation for some of the vampire things that it just the fact that they have True Blood, the name of the show, like the synthesized blood stuff that they can drink. And that's good enough. The fact that you can actually synthesize nutrients for them, like that seems very scientific. What they really need is the nutrition from the blood, not blood per se.
Yeah.
And like that makes sense. That whereas you could have a version of the story where they really need human blood, period. You can't synthesize it.
Yeah.
So that I guess that's why, I subject it to a little bit of scrutiny sometimes, because I feel like the show's a little bit, does that kind of realism thing a little bit.
It tiptoes around. It crosses the line into realism when it wants to.
Yeah.
when it's convenient or something, but it definitely reserves the right to be all supernatural explanation.
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, going back to Marianne, like she just kind of wished herself into being a Maynard.
Yeah.
You know, I mean that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, don't you know, Justin? Everything that exists willed itself into existence. Haven't you heard that before?
I have heard that. A wise woman once said that, I think.
A wise Yahtzee playing woman?
Yes. A wise Yahtzee playing woman who apparently needs some money.
Oh, she needs money for Yahtzee, for her Yahtzee habit.
The Yahtzee must continue.
Do you know how much Yahtzee boards cost these days?
Is there even a board?
It's in the tens of dollars. I don't know what Yahtzee is.
I think it's just dice and a scorecard. I don't think there is a board.
There's no board? What is the
I don't
dice?
think
You
so.
just put the dice on the table?
Yeah, I think you just roll dice on a table and it's based on
what
what
does she
you
need
get.
money for then? Jeez.
No, I agree. I mean, she could definitely have a lifetime supply of Yahtzee materials.
Yeah.
If she wanted, without selling that much tea.
All right. So, what cool stuff did you like so far this season? Like I said, I mentioned some stuff in the first episode. I really enjoyed Bill. After he gets out, gets freed from the werewolf captors in the car. He's drained and injured, and so he goes to that old lady's house and feeds from her and all that stuff. I thought that was a pretty cool little scene, and even though he sort of uses her, he glamours her into thinking her son came to visit and gave her money, and it's like, oh, that's nice, it's like, oh, Bill,
yeah.
Your heart's not beating, but you still have one.
I don't think I fully realized that vampire hearts don't beat.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, I think that all is part of the whole idea that's why they're cold,
That is weird that they have blood if their hearts don't beat. You really have a point that I hadn't even considered. I guess I didn't realize their hearts weren't beating, but yeah, that's wow.
Yeah, well, they're dead, so their heart's not going to beat.
Okay.
Because if your heart's beating and you're walking around and talking, I'm sorry, you're alive.
I mean, here's the thing: they're quote unquote dead, but like, come on.
Yeah, they're dead. Yeah, quotes. Dead in quotes.
But by the way I would want to define alive, I think they're alive.
Yeah, but I think that's why they're dead is because their heart isn't beating and they're not aging.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But it's obviously they have their brains working to some degree. They have thoughts and feelings and
memories.
mental processes and memories. How that happens, I think, should just be supernatural unless their special, powerful vampire blood just keeps their brain running sort of indefinitely. The electrical stimulus the brain needs to run is somehow garnered from the blood or something. You might want to say, but in general, yeah. I mean, I think that's the big reason why they're dead or considered dead, I should say, is because their heart doesn't beat.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I really love the end of the end of episode 1, Bad Blood, and the next part in episode 2 that they pick up on when Bill fights the werewolves and he's like, I should warn you, I fed recently, and we don't know at this point how well Bill is going to do against 4 or 5 werewolves, and the answer is sublimely.
Yeah.
He rips those guys apart, literally ripped some of them apart, and it was an awesomely gruesome scene. And but I really enjoyed seeing Bill tear into them, and of course, go ahead. I was going to say, of course, Captain Galt from Lost. He plays Cooter, the main werewolf.
He's Cooter.
He's Cooter. Yeah,
God
he's
damn
Cooter.
it! I hate that name.
Yeah, right?
That's awful.
Mm-hmm. I love that he's basically a dog man named Cooter.
I was reading the synopsis and they were talking about Cooter, and I'm like, who the fuck is Cooter?
Yeah,
It's
a couple
Captain
times
Dog.
they've called him Coot, I think, but
Okay.
that's no better.
Yeah, it's really not. I was just gonna say, I thought that was a great week-long setup and punchline. I have to warn you, I fed, and then the next week we don't see what happens. We see the aftermath.
Yeah, exactly. We see the aftermath of the.
He's just
Bill
standing
tearing him
there,
apart.
and it's like bloody guys laying around, and there's legs off, and it's just like his mouth is covered in blood. It was great little and here's what happened.
Mhm.
Yeah, I really like that bit as well.
And I saw a little behind the scenes thing on HBO.com with Alan Ball talking about his decision to use actual wolves for the werewolves and not try to do any CG stuff. And I like it. To me, it's fine. I'm not like a werewolf fan to any super degree. I don't know who is. I guess there are people, but
probably
I am totally fine with not having them transform into sort of man werewolf versions. I'm fine with it being really a shape-shifting ability, and they're just turning into animals. They're not a hybrid wolf man thing.
Yeah.
Where they're walking around 6 feet tall with a snout and claws or something.
Right. I mean, I think to me that is a little bit scarier, but I think I like the way they're doing it. It works for me.
It's less scary but more realistic, and to me that's a good compromise.
Exactly. Yeah. It feels more in line with the way the show is.
Mm-hmm.
It would be weird if they had sort of full wolf people walking around. I kind of like the idea of werewolves. There aren't a lot of good werewolf movies out there.
No.
But I think the concept is kind of cool, and maybe no one's quite figured out how to make a really good movie out of it.
I mean, I think in terms of good movies with monsters, it's vampires, then zombies, then werewolf, then Frankenstein, something like that.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do with Frankenstein. There's only so much you can do with werewolves, and I think zombies is a pretty big field that you can do things with, and vampires, of course, is even greater. I think there's a hierarchy for monsters.
Absolutely, Frankenstein is really specific.
It's very specific. Yeah,
it's one thing.
Monster. Yeah.
Yeah. But it belongs. I mean, it's a classic horror monster.
Yeah.
I think you're right. There's something. I think vampires just have a lot going for them, and the thing about werewolves that I don't think they've made clear whether it has anything to do with the show. What am I trying to say? I haven't figured out if on the show the full moon has any effect on the werewolves at all.
Mm-hmm.
Have they even addressed that?
Well, in this last episode 4, 9 Crimes, is that what it was called? I don't know why.
Yes.
We'll talk about that.
Obscurely titled 9 Crimes.
When they started turning at the end,
mm-hmm.
I thought it was because since they were all sort of seemingly involuntarily turning, at least Al Seed seems like he was involuntarily turning.
Yeah.
I assumed they might have to do with the full moon.
That's what I was thinking too. But they didn't. It didn't seem like they made that clear.
Well, it was. Yeah, you didn't. I mean, you only saw 30 seconds of that scene, and then that was over. Sookie basically's got to run out of there. But I feel like maybe she'll run out, and we see it's a full moon or something, or the full moon is starting. But there seemed to be some reason why they were all at once turning.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess because that's the big werewolf thing.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like they would have to address it.
I think they have to address it, and I almost feel like they have to stick to it.
Yeah.
It's like vampires not being able to be let into somebody's house until they invite them in. It's like that's such a part of the canon for that that group, that genre, that it's I can't imagine them not, especially since it's such since they can turn whenever they want. Because
right.
I think some werewolf movies or stories they can only turn when it's a full moon.
Right.
But the fact that they can turn whenever they want, I think it's a fine compromise for them to also have to say, well, when it's a full moon, they have to turn too.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they don't have a choice when it's a full moon. They just have to stay that way.
And it's kind of akin to the shapeshifters because they have to they feel the need to shapeshift after a certain point of being human. You know, I got to go for a run. You know, they have to go be some other animal, usually their go-to animal, I guess.
Right.
And so it's kind of like that, really, too, where after a certain number of hours, they just feel the need to go do that.
Yeah.
Kind of like Odo from Star
That's what I was going to say. That's what it reminds me of, is Odo sleeping in the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's the shapeshifters are really cool. That's something that isn't, I mean, there have been shapeshifters before, but it's not quite mythic like vampires and werewolves are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's more, it seems like there's less like mythology to go with it, and so they can kind of just do what they want with the idea.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like they've gone with, as far as I can tell, shapeshifters can only change into animals. Mm-hmm. You know, as opposed to Odo, who could just change into whatever.
He could do, any sort of object or thing he saw, he could turn into. Yeah,
he would be a bag or something, you know, whatever, to sneak into some place, you know. But it doesn't look like Sam or his family can do that. It looks like they have to, like, be some kind of living creature.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't seem like they can turn into other people.
Good point. Yeah, exactly.
They haven't shown that either.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Yeah.
They took it that far. So, yeah, it seems like their abilities are limited to a certain extent.
I'd love for Sam to try at some point. I mean,
mm-hmm.
humans are people, so I don't know how much more complex a human is than any of the other animals that they turn into physiologically. So, it seems like it could be possible. I doubt they want to have that as part of their story, but it seems like it could be possible.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they could turn into a chimpanzee or something, you know, they're well on their way.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you know, I mean, the outcome seems really different, but like at a sort of genetic level, it's not that big of a difference.
Yeah. Or maybe they would I don't know. Maybe they would explain it by saying like, what Sam looks like as a human is the human version of his shapeshifting, and you know, like when you, I mean, I'm making up shit, of course, but maybe it's like, you know, if he's going to turn into a pig, he's going to turn into a certain kind of pig, and it's going to always look like that or something, versus some sort of variation between different, you know, kinds of pigs or something. So maybe they might say, well, if he's going to turn into a human, all he can do is what he looks like versus actually mimicking what Bill looks like or something like that.
It seems like they already have that kind of idea. Like Sam can only change into that kind of dog.
Yeah.
You know, and like his brother had a kind of dog he changed into as well.
Exactly.
You know, it seems like you're right. Like they have like one version of each animal they turn into.
Now, if some other kind of dog showed up, I feel like Sam should be able to turn into that as long as he imprints on it. But they do kind of seem to make it sort of isolated in terms of the different animals.
Yeah, yeah. You're saying pig reminded me of the whole pig thing from last season.
Gotta get that pig. Where's that pig at? You know, what's her name? The officer, the black officer lady. You know, she was lamenting in the last episode about Andy and that pig. You know, she brought that up again. I'm like, wow, that was a big deal. Him talking about that pig.
He's come here, pig. Yeah, that was a ridiculous subplot. But I think it turned out that the pig was her, like, butler servant guy.
No, the pig was the girl. The pig was what's her name? The girl.
That's right.
Yeah,
that was my theory. That's right. It was not Darlene. Whatever that. Yeah, her. Daphne.
Daphne. It was the pig was Daphne. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That makes more sense because she's actually a shapeshifter. I was going to say that raises so many questions about the butler, but it doesn't. That's not what.
No. The butler was just human and apparently inferior, according to Marianne. He just never learned that, Carl.
God, that scene was so weird when he got shot. When she holds her hand out and the bullet deflects or something.
Yeah.
That I don't know. That was a weird scene.
Marianne willed herself into having all these crazy powers. It's pretty insane.
Yeah.
I mean, if she's not the epitome of The Secret, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Are you're familiar with The Secret, right?
No, but I agree. She must be the epitome of it.
The Secret, the book, the philosophy about the law of attraction, and it's sort of like a sort of self-help, positive thinking philosophy that, what you want and what you continually think about will you attract in the universe. So if you, want to be successful in a particular way or have this particular outcome, if you if you are asking the universe for it, sort of in a general sense, then the universe will give it to you.
I see.
So it's kind of an application of that, of saying, she wants to be something, and so she becomes that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's what she was. That's kind of what the Queen was saying.
Mhm.
And I think whether the Queen really knows anything or not, I think that's supposed to be the idea of what happens.
Yeah.
You're right that she I don't know, had some kind of frustrated existence in ancient Greece or something, and decided to, hey, whatever, I'll go out in the woods and eat animals and dance around and.
Yeah, because that makes sense, right? The Queen's explanation of the Maenad was not great, of just hey, my husband beats me and doesn't treat me that well. Here's a cult where I can beat up stuff and kill stuff and eat stuff and worship the living earth or something, and hey, she just kept saying, and hey, what's that? It's
yeah.
All right. I guess that's what we're supposed to do as an audience. Go, hey,
yeah.
Here's the action we can take, right? All right.
Somehow it's the next logical step.
Mhm.
Okay, why not?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like that idea, just as an isolated idea of if you, it has its, its connections to the Matrix, to Star Wars, to the Force. This whole idea of the power of mind over matter, things like that, and of if you think about something enough or want it enough or conjure this will enough, it can actually bend or alter, the laws of the universe and things like that. I like that idea. It's cool. It's interesting, But the way she explained sort of how you become a regular person and turn into a Maenad was just really not that great. But I don't know how else you can explain, that. But basically the idea was, someone tells you can get power by killing stuff and eating it, and you believe it so much that it becomes true.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
So the other crazy stuff this season that I liked, I mean that scene with Eric speed screwing that one chick. When Sookie comes downstairs and you see him, having sex with the dancer girl.
Mm-hmm.
But he's doing it in fast motion vampire stuff.
Right.
So it was pretty shocking to see. You don't really see that. And by the way, they intimate that he was having sex with her for 6 hours. I just don't know how she could withstand that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she was dancing on stage later, and I'm just like, okay,
Damn.
This is a fictional show. All right.
Mm-hmm.
6 hours.
Yeah, there'd have to be some serious problems with that. That
Yeah.
would be that's pushing the limits. So he's going at like super speed and 6
Yeah.
hours. Like that's going to do tissue damage.
Yeah. She's gonna have medical issues.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I forgot about the 6 hour thing. I mean, even
Yeah.
just the super fast thing is kind of pushing it. But
Mhm.
yeah, ooh.
Pushing it, pun intended.
Pun intended. Not really, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that was quite a scene. I enjoyed that.
You got anything else from that first episode, or things in general?
Let me think. I don't know if I remember the first episode specifically enough to remember what was in it. It was good though. I remember liking it.
Mhm.
It was a good kickoff for the season.
Yeah, totally.
I think I like the Franklin character. I think he gets introduced in that episode.
I gotta say, half of what makes him interesting is his voice to me.
Oh yeah.
It's just so insane. It's just like he's got that cool British thing going
Yep.
on.
Exactly. Yeah. I would say for me he's probably the strongest villain this season.
Mhm.
Not in terms of like, just sheer strength or something, but just in terms of the most interesting. Yeah. Yeah, like he's the closest to Marianne, I think, this season, even though still not quite as strong as she was.
Yeah. I also like in the first episode, the Queen still isn't, in terms of her acting and her character, I'm still not in love with her. She's just an outlier from like everyone else in the show.
Yeah.
But the one thing she's done that I love is that little quick shot of when Eric is talking to her in the bar, and the magistrate, I don't know what his title is. He's just left, and she's telling Eric to push the V and to get rid of it, basically. So he's got to make sure somebody sells all of it so they don't have it anymore. And he's talking back to her, and she like jumps on him. She like flies on top of him and knocks him against the wall. And it's this weird, awesome scream that they have in the soundtrack, and this cool little visual effect. And it was the best thing she's done so far. It was just so cool to see.
Yeah.
But I got to say, that's one of the things I don't want to say I don't like it, but it's just because it's just sort of a matter-of-fact thing of the show and how they're telling their vampire story. But it's really frustrating to me that anyone who's older is automatically more powerful. And therefore, if you're Bill, you really can't say no to the king for various reasons. Number one being he can just pull you up, he could rip you apart in a second. And, it just basically means, if you got there first, if you became a vampire first, chronologically, then you're set up to be more powerful in the long run. So it just sucks that, that people can't, you can't just sort of get out of situations by your wits or any other way.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically, if a difference of opinion is going to come down to who's more powerful.
Right.
And that's going to be dictated mostly by who's older.
And they never die, at least not, without being killed in specific ways.
Yeah.
So, if they happen to have been turned first, they are kind of automatically more powerful than most other vampires.
Yeah, it's just like they heard about it first. They showed up first, and now it's first come first serve in terms of power. And they, if you were lucky enough to be turned and really born 2,000 years ago and then turned, then you are going to just be sort of always more powerful than anyone who came after you. And it's fine only to the degree that it indicates the need for different types of conflict resolution, because it's, like I said, if there's a conflict and you can't solve it with words, it's going to come down to who's the most powerful. And it's not like in other situations where, obviously that happens a lot, where it's going to be a physical altercation, but like to solve the situation, that happens a lot in different stories, but but there's no room to be sort of outwitted usually. I mean, we've seen that one time where Marlena was holding Bill in the hotel in Dallas, and he wouldn't let Bill leave to go help Sookie. And, he did outwit her at a certain point and knocked her over the head with that TV.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple times you can kind of get one over on them, but in general, if somebody's older, and especially if they're your maker, that's another level of unevenness, sort of. If they're your maker, even, that's really going to be like you can't defeat them.
Yeah. I mean, you can get little things past them.
Mm-hmm.
But in a direct confrontation, you just can't possibly win.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. It makes certain conflicts not really matter. It makes the issues different than they would be if they were all just humans.
And especially since Bill is just so, recently and so consistently always being held captive by someone else who's more powerful. Like, that's really his go-to storyline, is someone's kidnapped him and holding him for X amount of time. It makes it like, well, he can't really do it. When he shows up at the king's place, it's like, well, not only is the king sort of in title over him, but he's also way more powerful, and so Bill can't really do anything but comply. Or he can die or he can comply. So
right. Right. I mean, and his maker's there too.
And then his maker's there too, so.
Who's also more powerful than he is. So yeah, it's basically hopeless for him, I mean, I think what he's doing, it feels plausible that he thinks that's his only option.
Mhm. Yeah. And that whole thing about the king wants him to give up information about the Queen of Louisiana. And in exchange, he's going to make him, I guess, sheriff of Area 2 or something like that of Mississippi. They did, I think, a really good job in his motivation for agreeing to that deal with that little flashback with his maker and Bill's original wife, and the whole lesson of, the only way you can show love to a human is by staying away from them. So they had that little flashback to explain his decision to stay away from Sookie. So it's plausible that he's doing it because he realizes, and he tells her that on the phone, of course, too, when he breaks up with her over the phone, that, look at your life since I've been around you, and it's the classic, person with power sort of syndrome. Spider-Man has that. Any of the big superheroes or people who have power, their loved ones around them are subject to the repercussions of that. So
right.
Nothing new there, but in terms of his, I thought they did a good job in explaining why he would at least sort of tell the king that he's choosing to stay away from Sookie. Right.
Yeah, that was such a lost moment for me, like having a flashback that illustrates this thing about Bill that they're gonna have him, basically quote from now. And so he can say, okay, you were right,
Yeah, totally. And she comes in right on cue, and he's like, "You're right. You taught me this lesson." And it's like, well, you can't say anything to that. She taught me that.
Exactly.
I've liked her character a couple times. Her in the flashback with Bill's wife, she was good. A couple of the early flashbacks with her were really obnoxious. She's hit or miss, and I don't know if it's the actress or the character, but she's hit or miss with me in terms of what it seems I like her in. But again, so much of her character is being whiny and needy.
Yeah.
In relationship to Bill, so they're, sort of one note. And I guess I like her when she's doing something else.
Mhm. Yeah. No, you're right. I think that's probably the weakness of the character, but she definitely has a function. And I think, for me, I've liked her better this season than previous seasons.
Yeah. So far, I've definitely liked her better. She has not been the big annoyance that she was before. But, so much of season 2 was like her keeping Bill in that hotel room. And that was not that interesting at all. Please let me leave. Like how many times, can you watch Bill beg to be let go?
Yeah. Yeah, no, there was a lot of that. They had that, and then they basically had the Queen hold him for a while. It was, like you said.
No, you can't leave. We have to play Yahtzee again.
You say that. That's really what happened.
I say that like it's a joke, but it's funny because it's true.
It really is. They really did play Yahtzee again. And then Eric comes in, and then they play Yahtzee for a while.
That was so weird. All that Eric learned, I should say, all that we learned from what Eric visiting the Queen was what we already knew.
Yeah.
And I think there might have been one line or something about selling the V, maybe. But in general, like, Bill was leaving when Eric showed up. If they weren't adversaries, they should have just shared information and saved Eric some time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I really feel like the Queen should be a better character. I
agree.
It just seems like there's space there for a great character. And
honestly, I would wonder what the Queen would be like as a character if the Marlena actress was playing her.
Yeah.
Because she has a quality about her that makes her seem like a vampire. She's got a depth and she's got an attitude that really works for a vampire character that the Queen does not have.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't know. Like the Queen just seems like it's the actress. It seems like she's playing it like she's on Broadway. Like to me, she's playing it like she's doing a stage play.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. That's right. I mean, I think some of that's in the writing, but I definitely think that the actor is making it worse.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think the what is her name? I should know.
I think it's Marlena. I keep saying that. Wondering if I'm right.
Yeah, like I'm not quite sure what her name was. Marlena's fine with me. I'll call her that. I think she has certain qualities that are a little bit similar to like she reminds me of the Queen a little bit. I could definitely see her playing that part.
Yeah, it's Lorena. I kept saying Morena.
You said Marlena.
Marlena. Okay, yeah.
What is it again? I already forgot.
Lorena.
Okay. Lorena. I like Marlena.
Yeah, right?
Okay. Yeah. I know after 3 seasons I should know what that character's name is, but I'll just go ahead and confess that I've only seen the episodes once. There's a few that I've seen more than once, but for the most part I've only seen them once, and I haven't really spent a lot of time like reading, True Bloodpedia or thinking a lot about the various characters and plotline, like not like I did with Lost. So
yeah,
there's basic facts about the show that if you're a big fan of True Blood, I might seem kind of lame on that. Sorry, that's just
That's all right. I forgive you.
That's just where I am on the show. I really like the show, but I don't know. There's only one Lost for me.
Yeah, totally.
And other shows I enjoy in a different way.
Well, enjoying shows in a different way, that's True Blood, all right.
Yeah, it's got something. Okay, so I have a couple questions from True Blood that maybe you can help me with. This is sort of like more Lost style stuff. So I think it's in the second episode. There's a little bit with Jason and Andy, and they go like bust some meth lab guys or something, and then like Jason sees this woman like I don't know running around a little ways away, and eventually I think he ends up like catching one of the meth guys, right? And that's sort of the end of that bit. But as far as I can tell, that hasn't got that the bit with him seeing the woman. There hasn't been really any. Have I missed the development on that? Like, what was that about?
They have not done anything else with that woman.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure.
I think something is going to happen. He sees her. I think something's going to happen with her I think she came from the meth lab, I mean, I think, it was being raided, so people were sort of fleeing. So
Right.
I assume she came from the meth lab. When I saw her, anyway, something makes me think that she's a werewolf. I don't know why, but something makes me think she's a werewolf or has some other secret like that. But I don't think they've done anything with that storyline yet. The only stuff they've done since is more about Jason sort of becoming a cop, really.
Okay. Yeah. So just as far as Jason goes, I think I'll just give you credit. We didn't do a podcast, but you basically call what happens in this most recent episode. The sheriff. It looks like the sheriff is retiring, which makes me wonder if that actor wanted off the show or if they just didn't have anything to do with his character anymore or whatever. I wonder exactly why that happened. But it looks like they're making Andy the new sheriff. You called that, and Jason has this little subplot where he wants to be a cop because it's interesting. He shot eggs, at the end of last season, and he's feeling guilty about it. Like occasionally he'll see people with bullet holes in their head, and it's sort of this weird flashback thing associated with that. And so he feels guilty about it. At the same time, I guess that's the point he makes to Andy in this episode, that he wants credit. If he's going to feel guilty about it, he wants to at least get credit for
it's
for shooting the bad guy, basically.
It's a weird reaction. He shoots eggs for no great reason, but he shoots them for, from his perspective, he thought that was the thing to do, whatever.
It kind of seems like he just reacted.
Yeah, he of course wasn't thinking any. I mean, he did what Jason does, is he thinks before. He reacts before he thinks.
Right. I think last season he said something like, "The time for thinking is over."
The time for thinking, when did it start? When was your time? Here, I got a piece of paper and a pencil. Let's chart out the era of your time for thinking. When was that now? It's kind of that same sentiment with that Andy says, because Jason says, I've been thinking there should be an easier way, for me to become a cop. And he's like, yeah, that's your problem. You're always looking for the easy way to do things. And that really is his problem. He's always looking for the shortcut. He doesn't really want to put in the work. He wants to already be there. Yeah. And I think that's a little bit dissatisfying in terms of his character, that all the stuff he went through with the Fellowship of the Sun, coming out on the other end of that plot line, sort of seeming like he had learned something about thinking and not being so easily duped into things and being so gullible. And, Sookie had some comments about that. You thought he was going to get it a little bit, and he seems like he didn't sort of hold on to any of that information. All he seems to have learned from the Fellowship of the Sun stuff was the leadership and the butt-kicking attitude, the sort of, law enforcement or, right versus wrong type of attitude or something. He's on that page, but in terms of thinking and being practical and pragmatic, he doesn't have that yet.
Right. Yeah. It's the way his brain works is very strange. Like it feels like he has these little flashes of insight occasionally, but he'll forget about them. For extended periods, and then maybe they'll come back eventually. But he doesn't seem to learn very well.
Yeah, he definitely does not seem to learn. He does not learn lessons.
Yeah.
He's the kind of guy who, keeps touching the stove and wondering if it's going to be hot the next time.
Exactly.
Okay, it's hot now. If I touch it again, is it going to burn me? I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I think for me, Jason has been a little bit less successful this season than in previous seasons. I think I liked him more, probably the most in season 1, but I also liked his stuff in season 2. Like you said, the Fellowship of the Sun thing, where it seemed like he he found some kind of purpose as some kind of like military figure or something. Like he had some kind of talent for that. And it seemed like he was sort of a badass. Like he has that rescue bit, and then there's that whole paintball incident.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly thought, Sookie has some sort of ability. She's a telepath, and then she's got these other sort of abilities or whatever is going to lead to whatever they end up calling her or saying that she is. And I thought, well, maybe Jason has something like that too. And in the Fellowship of the Sun storyline, he seemed to have these sort of innate leadership abilities, and he seemed to, in these weird situations, figure out a really great way to handle them. And I was thinking, okay, well, maybe that's his, that's his power. He's got these sort of leadership skills and these like uncanny abilities in certain situations, and they haven't really been developing that. But I think this cop thing is going to be interesting. I think they will get back to that whole idea of whatever his skills are, whatever he's good at. I think they'll show that some more, but. Yeah, it definitely seemed like it was a thing that he's, I mean, the scene when, Luke is trying to climb the fence. I mean, that was a great scene. He couldn't get over, and the drill sergeant guy was like, "Your family's dying over there. Your vampires are killing them." And then, then Jason climbs up on the fence, helps him over, and tells him, "Hey, you saved your family. It's not too late." So it's not only the tactical part, physical part of getting over an obstacle, but he had the sort of insight to say something on an emotional level to this guy, that was important, which is what a military leader would want to do too. So that was cool. It's cool to see Jason be good at something like that. And then he storms the church with the paintball gun, and shoots Newman in the head with the paintball gun. And luckily, there's vampires there to finish the storyline and be the characters of power, because all he had was a paintball gun.
Yeah.
He gets sort of captured, sort of, but yeah, Jason's a hit and miss sometimes too, but he's something else. He's like Joey from Friends,
Yeah. I think you're right. That's what he is. That's the kind of character he is. That's why it's weird. I think the actor who plays him is really good because there's something compelling about the character that even though he is Joey, somehow he seems more interesting. It seems like there's more to him than Joey.
Yeah.
Even though it's very obscured by, being like Joey so much. I also liked the bit at the end of season 2 with him and Andy. I mean, it turned into sort of nothing, but I liked the build-up, with him getting together, going down to the police station, getting the guns, and like, the bit we talked about with, pretending to be the god that comes, and, I thought all that stuff was really, really nicely done, and, it really showed him sort of trying to – I think that was sort of him kind of applying what he learned.
Yeah. And I really like the scene with him and Andy, when they're about to go storm Marianne's house, or really Sookie's house, but where Marianne is, and they have that sort of heart-to-heart about their differences. Andy's like, I basically don't like you because I think you've had it all too easy, and then you get to actually hear, Jason say the opposite of why he had a hard life, and even down to, he's in really good shape, but he works to be in that shape, it's not like he just rolls out of bed and doesn't have to do anything. So it was kind of nice to get, usually characters who play the dumb parts don't get that much depth and don't get an opportunity to sort of talk about something real about themselves. Joey never says like, well, everyone always thinks I'm a dumb person, and when I was growing up, people made fun of me because they said I was, you never get anything really sort of thing like that.
Yes. No, you're right. That scene was a great scene because Jason actually comes across as convincing that he didn't have it easy.
Yeah.
You know, it actually
and
works.
if you think about it, yeah, I mean, he has it, you know.
I know.
I mean, he and Sookie aren't rich, you know, like their grandmother gets killed, you know, by a murderer that he was friends, you know what I mean? Like, if you think about what you've even just seen on the show, he has not had it easy.
It's just perfect because on the surface, it seems like Andy's right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you actually look at the situation closely, and it's like, no, actually he's wrong. And Jason himself realizes it.
Yeah.
You know, makes a good case for himself. So yeah, that was a very good scene, definitely.
Yeah, and it's cool to see Andy and Jason start to become friends. That was a big scene for that, and
yeah,
yeah,
definitely. It gave him somebody else to bounce off of, and I guess that's what they're continuing this season, basically.
Totally.
I don't know where this cop thing's going. I guess really just what I'm getting at is it feels like the center of gravity for the show has moved away from him. You know.
Yeah, I think he was more plugged into the main storylines, and he's off to the side a bit. But there's so much going on. People have to move around.
Yeah, no, but it feels like he's heading in like Arlene territory. Where he's just kind of on the outskirts of the main plots.
Yeah.
You know, and not really. Whereas Arlene, you know, had a central role in season 1 where, spoiler alert, you know, her husband was the killer. You know, now it just feels like she's just kind of there.
You know, I think it was in the first or second episode this season when I guess should have been the first one where she's talking to the police about Eggs getting shot, and Tara's in the background with Lafayette, and Arlene was like, you know, was basically saying, you know, Eggs was the killer, and Tara fell in love with the killer, but then she was like, you know, who hasn't done that, you know, before? She made some line like that, and it was like she's trying to, and then of course after that Tara gets really pissed off at her and calls her a racist. But she's actually sort of sympathizing with her, saying, hey, I fell in love with a serial killer. I can understand, you know, the situation you're in. So it was an interesting little part where she was actually trying to sort of be nice or something and sympathize with Tara's predicament, but it sort of backfires somehow. But Arlene's had some issues, and now I guess the idea is the baby that she's pregnant with is not Terry's, but what's his name? Renee's.
Yeah,
you know.
I think that's where they're going with that. It looks like they're drawing that out a bit. They bought her some time by having her just tell Terry, "Oh no, it's yours."
Yeah, you know, that's one of the things I don't like in stories, and I don't know if it's because I'm a guy. I don't know what it is, or just pure objective morality. That's one of the things I really don't like is when somebody tricks someone or deceives someone about their parenthood or their, you know, being somebody's father or something. That just really bugs me. That, you know, that she basically tells Terry that this is her kid, this is his kid.
Yeah.
You know, because to me that's just a line you shouldn't cross, because it's such a big important thing, you know, and to think some kid is yours, and when you ever find out it's not, that's no good, Arlene. But you know, I've seen that in other things where people sort of you know. And I guess, you know, some people don't really care. You know, there's some other show I was watching where the guy found out it wasn't his kid, and he didn't really care. He was like, I'll raise it anyway. But
right.
That's just a thing to me. That you know, lie about adultery, lie about murder, lie about some other stuff. But don't lie that's your kid, you know, that you're some guy's not the father or something.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, I think, you know, it's one thing to know and not care. I think, you know, keeping it a secret, yeah, obviously that's not the right thing to do, but it basically bought them some time to, you know, because they really didn't totally tell us. I mean, I think that's what it is, because we don't know anybody else who it could potentially be, you know, because it's pretty recent. You know, so it really shouldn't go further back than Renee, and there hadn't been anybody else. So I guess that's where they're going with it. It's weird, though, to bring something like that back in. You know, I don't really know what the point of that is. I mean, maybe it's just drama with her and Terry. I don't know.
But she's going to have a serial killer baby.
Well, there's that. There's that. But, like, it almost doesn't matter in a way. I mean, beyond the drama between her and Terry, like, you know, Renee was just Renee. I mean, he's just a guy. I mean, it's just going to be a baby. I mean, it's not, you know what I mean? There's no, like, crazy thing that's going to happen.
Unless the baby's going to have his spirit.
Okay.
He's going to be reincarnated through that baby.
If they did
Aren't
that.
you scared? Aren't you scared of that?
That never even occurred to me.
What show are you watching?
Yeah, that was so weird. He invented that persona, and I'll never forget when they originally did that reveal. I didn't even recognize him. I think he didn't have the beard or something. And they show his picture at the end of the episode, and I did not know who it was.
I remember that. Yeah, the fax. They faxed his picture, and you're like, who's that supposed to be?
Yeah, like, oh, it's the guy. It's some guy we don't know. Okay. Yeah, that was pretty sad. Not one of my best moments in TV viewing.
Here's a question I wonder if you know the answer to. Do you know what Pam's last name is?
She's got a last name?
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't have known this, but I'm reading it, and it's an interesting last name.
I don't.
It's Ravenscroft.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Ravenscroft.
Croft, yes, with an O.
With an O, Ravenscroft.
Ravenscroft.
You know, if your name starts with Raven, you've got an interesting last name.
Mhm. Yeah. No, that's it sounds like the British version of Ravenscraft.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't know. Do we know anything about Pam? Like, I really don't know. Like, what her history is.
Yeah, we don't really. You know, I love Pam as a character, and so much of it is the actress. It has to be because we don't know that much about her character. But yeah, we haven't really found out that much about her. And that's another thing I did like about this season that they've shown so far is the flashback that they had with Godric and Eric in World War II Germany and tracking down the werewolves and all that. So hopefully we'll see some more of that because, I mean, Eric and Godric hanging out in World War II, I'll watch a whole show about that. You know, tracking down werewolves and stuff like that. That's a whole show, especially because I feel like we didn't get enough Godric. He was interesting.
Yes.
I think half of what we got was like okay, you know, his sort of like listful meanderings of life and his play. It was just like, yeah, I want to see the cool Godric when you were like killing people and turning people and you know. So I definitely was excited when they had a flashback, and it's a cool way to get more Godric stuff.
I really liked the contemplative Godric. I think my biggest problem was it seemed like he had this great ambition to, you know, unite humans and vampires and just gave up, you know, and just kind of fades away into nothingness. Like it was really disappointing that he had this like grand idea of the way things should be and just completely does not succeed in any way at all.
Yeah, it seems like he picked the wrong test subjects for his philosophy. He picked people who, because the Fellowship with the Sun wasn't about we don't like vampires as much as to the extent that we disagree with them. You know, it was like, no, we hate them, and there's nothing they can do. You know, they're anathema to our religion. There's nothing they can do or say that will change that. And I don't think he thought that through. You know, I think there's probably other vampire haters in the world that he could reason with. But it was not Reverend Newland Newland. And and it was like, he gave up. He was like, this will be the people I will try to convince that we can be allies with. But and then of course that wasn't going to happen with that group, and he I mean, I didn't mind the lessons that he learned of life and stuff like that. Like, it was interesting, but at the same time it wasn't the best stuff for Godric to me was the flashback when he turned Eric and that kind of stuff. The, like, you know, Godric being powerful and doing cool stuff. You know, I want to see more of that because you know, I want to see him before he figured out whatever grand idea he had about life, you know.
Yeah. I guess yeah. I like the lessons learned, Godric. I just wanted more of that, but I'll take whatever they give us. I mean, Godric in the old days is cool too. I think they again kind of pulled a loss, bringing back a dead character with a flashback, which is really nice. I really didn't think we'd see Godric again.
Yeah,
I was surprised when they threw him out there in that flashback, and I think, you know, explaining what's going on in those flashbacks is part of the story this season.
Yeah.
You know, because I think they're kind of paralleling whatever they were doing, you know, in the past with what's going on now with the werewolves and this group.
Hopefully there's more of that, because the main point of that scene was Eric and Godric trying to find out who the werewolf leader was, the leader of that pack. And we sort of know that the leader of the pack is the king. So I don't know. They could be done with that. I hope they're not. I hope there's more that we can, more story there. But like my point is, if it was just that idea of who is the leader, we know that now. So they might not need to go back to it. But hopefully there's other stuff they're going to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're going to do more with it. I feel like they're going to tell us. I feel like they're going to tell us something more from those days. I would guess we'll see. I want to say we'll get maybe a better idea of what was going on in the past with this group.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like what were they up to there? Because I think they really haven't made that clear. I mean, we don't know what they're up to now.
Yeah.
So I feel like that'll be sort of what we'll find out. Like both like what they're doing now and what they have been doing. You know, sort of like the history of this group.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm expecting. I don't know if we'll get that.
Well, I think that, you know, they're only going to show flashbacks that are relevant to the current plot. You know, I mean, that's what they've been doing usually. So, yeah, as long as it's, you know, something to do with the current plot, then I think they're right to show some flashbacks.
Yeah. I mean, I think it will. I think there will be a connection.
All right. So what other stuff?
I have another question. So I think we learned in this episode that the Queen was having the V sold because she wanted money because she's being taxed now, and she wants to maintain her queenly estate or something like that. So that's why she was doing it. Okay, you know, that was a question I had for a while that I didn't think they would even answer, and they did. So there's that. But what I didn't understand, so the Magister guy shows up and I guess, like, you know, ties up Pam and tortures her, and then Eric comes in and, you know, they have this little discussion about who's responsible. Like I had to, like, I got a little confused about what exactly was going on in that scene. Like, it's actually the Queen, but the Magister, like, throws out, like, you can either commit treason or something else, and then Eric blames it on Bill somehow. Like, I got totally lost in that little bit.
What seemed to happen was, you know, the Magister and his men come into Fantasia, and they find the V, which means, okay, somebody there selling V. Obviously, that's illegal for vampires, and I get the idea is that the Queen put Eric up to selling it. So the Magister was like, well, you can sell out your Queen, which will be treason. You know, I guess it's treason to basically sell out your master or your, you know, whoever your supervisor is.
Even if they're responsible for selling vampire blood? I mean, like, how ridiculous is a political system where your leaders can do these atrocious things and it's just treason to report them? And so you let someone who's not responsible go down for it? Like, that's just...
You say this like you don't live in America.
I should have known that was coming. God damn it. It just feels ridiculous to me to say, well, it's treason if you turn her in. Well, she's selling vampire blood. That's bad. Like, why is she allowed to do that? Because she's the queen.
Mhm.
You know, like that's weird. Like, shouldn't they have some? If they're going to punish somebody, like, why even go through the show? If it's her who's doing it, well, I guess she's allowed to do it because she's the queen. So let's move on. Like, why even go through the motions of punishing somebody that you know isn't responsible?
What do you mean? You mean why punish? What do you mean? Who's the somebody? You mean why would the Magister punish Eric? Or what are you saying? I didn't catch what you're saying.
Well, the idea seems to be, you know, if Eric says the queen did it, that's going to be treason. So he has to say that somebody else is responsible. And I guess he says Bill is responsible somehow?
Yeah, he says Bill has been missing for a while, and he alludes or directly says that, hey, maybe since Bill's missing, maybe he's the one who's responsible for this. To me, it doesn't explain why the V is in Fantasia, which is Eric's place.
Right.
So it's not, to me, a great answer. I really feel like they're just trying to somehow buy time or something, but I agree that the treason explanation is weird. When they said it, it made sense that, you know, to the degree that it seems like you shouldn't sell out your master, but I don't know what else he should do. I mean, if say for instance he didn't get caught and he came to the Magister and said, "Hey, the queen is making me sell V," like I don't know if that would have been better or something. I mean, it's sort of the same thing, but it's so I don't really know. It got a bit muddled. Anytime things get muddled, I think contrivance rears its ugly head. So
again,
yeah. So
I thought we were done with contrivance.
Should I say deleted scene? I don't know if that applies.
Why not? Throw that in too. I'm sure it happens.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's a bit weird. I really think Eric only blamed Bill to buy time.
Okay.
Because the Magister set him up between a rock and a hard place by saying you can't just sell out the queen and be done with it.
Right. But it's like if the queen did it, you know, which it seems like the Magister like has some sense that might actually be the case.
Mhm.
You know, like what are you supposed to do? Like it just seems ridiculous. Like, okay, if you turn her in, that's treason. Well, but you have to, like, someone has to go down for. So we'll just say somebody did it and then call it a day. Like it just, the whole thing seems ridiculous.
Mhm.
You know, like I just don't understand a political structure that works like that.
Yeah. Welcome to America. I mean, True Blood. Sorry.
I mean, you know, say what you will about the American political system, and I know you will.
I will. Here we go. Number one.
Don't worry. You'll have plenty of time to do that. There is in place, you know, a procedure for impeaching the president, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
mm-hmm.
It's there. Now, it doesn't happen a lot, but it exists, and it makes sense that it should exist. You know, if you had it where whatever the president does, it's treason to turn him in, like that would be horrible.
Yeah.
You know, so I can't, I mean, I just didn't get it. And okay, maybe you're right. Maybe it's just a contrivance, and that's why it just seems to not make sense.
Okay, here's the thing. It's almost like you know, treason. I want to think of mutiny, and it makes me think of a ship. So it's almost like if a subordinate on the ship is blaming the captain for a crime, it seems like that's along the lines of mutiny in terms of, you know, sort of going against the captain and the captain's orders. But I guess it's like, well, in a court of law or judicial system, it should be worked out in the end that, the captain was doing something wrong, therefore it's, it's not a punishable offense of mutiny because, it's almost like if the queen, if the queen of that kingdom orders the captain to go sail east, and then the captain wants to go sail west, and then the subordinate rats out the captain, then the queen of that place should say, okay, well, you were doing my bidding. I am the higher authority here, and you were following my orders, which supersede the captain's orders. Therefore, it's not mutiny. I would imagine that should be true in this case, too, where, and I just looked at that scene again, and it's, Eric said, basically the magistrate says, you're selling V, and Eric says, not by my orders, and the magistrate says, so then it's your queen, and so he says, which is it going to be, desecration of the blood, selling the V, or treason? So, he said treason against your legion or legion heir or whatever the word he said, but yeah, I mean, I think in general it's that crime of. I guess my point is, my long-winded point is to say, if this went to some whatever version of trial they would have, that he should be exonerated because his queen is making him do something that's against their general principles. But it's nevertheless, he would be, up for that crime of treason until proven that it's not treason.
I see.
Which still puts him between a rock and a hard place. And again, I think it's really just a contrivance for the plot to buy some time and stuff like that, and maybe to make it less easy for them to just go after the queen.
Right.
So the queen's not gonna like it when she hears about this.
Yeah. I mean, even having Eric say, it wasn't my orders. Like, who else can order Eric around? Bill can't order Eric around. Like Eric orders Bill around.
Yeah.
There's no. There's no other option there. Like, he's basically already said who it is. At least by implication.
Well, that's the thing. Like, Bill's name comes up, and if Bill hadn't been missing by and he's not missing, from anything really to do with this whole visa.
Totally unrelated, apparently.
It's like if he wasn't gone missing, Eric couldn't have used that excuse.
Yeah. It's still really dubious, but you're right.
It's not great. Again, it's really muddled. It's not great.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, at least I felt justified in being confused.
Yeah.
Because I still don't know what they're doing in that plot line. They also have this little bit in this episode with Lafayette going to sell the V to these, like, sort of hillbilly guys, and then they're like, no, and they start attacking him, and then Eric shows up and saves him, and it's like, you guys better buy it or I'll kill you or whatever.
Yeah, I know. So it seems like Eric is trying to groom Lafayette in certain ways, and one of the ways is sort of professionally and sort of telling him he can't just show up and institute his personality and his will and everyone else. He's got to sort of play the part and assimilate into various social scenes and stuff he's going to be involved in. Which I think for someone like Lafayette is an interesting lesson to learn because he's I'm going to do things my way, screw everybody else.
Yeah.
It's interesting for him to be forced to realize that there are times where it's more beneficial to him to do it a different way. Yes. And it's pretty nice that he's got a vampire to watch his back. Well, yeah. Like, especially Eric, Sawyer had Juliet to watch his back, but Juliet's no Eric. Yeah. As blonde as they both are. I think, Eric's one of the most kick-ass vampires on the show at this point. I think, Godric was more powerful because he was his maker, but, he's dead now. Yeah. No, you got to love Eric. Yeah, no, he's great. He can fly. He can fly. I think that's another thing they told us, I think, in this episode, that, vampires flying is somehow like people singing. It's something that they can all sort of latently do, but not really well. Yeah, some sort of power that comes with practice, and it's sort of different. I imagine different vampires can sort of do different things, and I'm sure a lot of it has to do with power too, power and age.
Yeah, and maybe even practice.
Mhm.
I think I like the way they sort of tell us that in the middle of a fantasy sequence, basically.
Mhm.
I think they also pulled a nice switch with it, because I think I assumed, and maybe they wanted people to assume, that this was kind of one of those the blood connection kind of fantasy sequences, because that's how it plays. But then it turns out it's just in Eric's mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the big thing was having it be in Eric's mind made me more sure that what he was saying about flying was true.
Totally.
Because he actually probably knows the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether all vampires can fly. So that was nice. It was nice to pull back on that. They just wanted to reiterate, because I think they basically separated him from Sookie this season, that that's still hovering in the background of his mind. And then they also threw in that little tidbit about vampire mythology, I guess, since they showed that he could fly last season.
Yeah. That whole dream sequence was weird. I knew something was wrong when he showed up and she was in this hotel room, and I'm like, I don't think that's where she was.
Mm-hmm.
But when you watch those things, you just go along with it.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay, well, all right.
Yeah,
right.
She's not. I guess I thought she was in. Isn't she in Alcide's apartment?
Yeah,
or something?
she's in his apartment.
I guess that's what I thought it was. Was it a hotel room?
Well,
I didn't really notice.
The exterior of the place looks like a hotel, and then when you see inside, it's nicer than what Alcide's place. He looks like he lives in a small 1-bedroom or something.
Okay.
It just looked like a different place completely. But I was like, all right, well, I don't know what's going on. And then Sookie was overly aggressive, and I'm like, okay, well,
yeah,
because usually in those sex vampire dreams, it's still the vampire who's making all the moves.
Yes,
but it was her making all the moves. So right when she was doing it, I'm like, oh, something's weird with this, and then they reveal it's Eric, and I'm like, okay, that's what's weird.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was gonna bring another thing up of the little vampire sex dreams, which is nothing I thought I would ever podcast about. Mommy, when I grow up, I want a podcast about vampire sex dreams. No, son, no. What I am hearing.
I really wonder what my mom would have said if I had told her that.
Yeah. Get Dr. Morgenstern on the line. We're going to need him to see the psychologist. Another awesome scene and I think sort of storytelling, groundbreaking little scene was the Sam's sex dream about Bill.
That's what I was going to bring up.
Oh, you were going to bring wow,
yeah.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, I'm glad we interrupted each other with the same thought.
Yeah, really, we should just have one of us speak for both of us.
Yeah, that works.
I just save everyone a little time. I thought that scene was awesome. The way it plays out, and the sexual tension, and just the WTF factor of okay, what are they doing, and how far is this going to go? Was pretty incredible. It was. To me, it felt like a roller coaster ride because I didn't know what was going on or why. I mean, I knew why. Obviously the connection there, but it was strange to see it actually play out and go, okay, Bill just dropped his pants right where he was standing.
Right.
Okay, I'm still watching. Okay, so now he he's asking for the shirt, and you can have the shirt off my back. I'm like, okay, I guess Sam would say that.
Right. Yeah, I had the same thing. Yeah, I sort of bought it, but it seemed a little weird. I liked how it built too. It was like, okay, there seems to be some kind of sexual tension between them, but maybe I'm just reading into it too much. No, it's
exactly.
there.
Yeah, you don't know how much it's just, Bill being Bill and being not caring or being comfortable or something. And
exactly.
Or how much he's actually, trying to hit on Sam.
Yeah.
And of course when Sam takes his shirt off and Bill is nice.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I guess you could compliment him, but still, what are you doing, Bill?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like every little step was a little more, a little more interesting and a little less like a little more like what's going on.
Right.
Than the last, and then of course want to join him in the shower. And
yeah.
I think I do.
Yeah, they kept pushing it, and then by the end you're like, whoa. And personally, like I didn't actually get what was going on until they revealed it.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, really? They're doing that? Okay.
Yeah.
But then they reveal it, and I fully understood what I was just watching. It was really well done.
It was very well done, and it's keeping in the context of the show. The whole, we've seen Sookie have those dreams. We know that Lafayette has had dreams about Eric.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen we've seen his hallucinations about Eric, but we haven't seen the dreams. But he
right.
mentioned to Sookie about it. So I like that it's not like only the women who drink from vampires to sex dreams.
Yeah.
To me that'd be really lame. That's just just sort of like cop out storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they didn't shy away from it, and it worked really well because Bill. You just don't expect Bill and Sam in a scene like that.
You never would expect Bill and Sam. No, not ever. Yeah. I just can imagine them filming that scene and cracking themselves up.
Yes.
Like how many times did Bill say nice and everyone on set is just laughing their ass off?
I forgot about that nice thing. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Nice.
Nice. Hubba hubba.
Yeah, that's it's that's another aspect. I guess it's sort of tied into the V being a drug, but that's another little thing that I think they kind of added to the vampire lore that really hasn't. I've never really seen anyone else do.
Yeah, that's what I love about True Blood is. They're adding to the vampire mythology, and and it's interesting stuff, and it's something else I put in that category is the flashback with Bill and Lorena, killing that girl and making the guy watch and having sex in the blood. I mean, as gruesome as that is, and of course not everyone wants to see that or wants to see a story with those elements. I do. I have a dark side, I guess. But it's still interesting that some just in terms of the vampire mythology, like that's something that they would do. It's interesting to like see that play out.
Yeah. No, that was definitely that was a good scene. Probably one of the better Lorena scenes. I think I've gotten probably a bit desensitized to the violence in the show. There is it gets pretty graphic at times. I think it was shit. Now I don't remember. Was it season 1 or 2? When is it? I don't even remember who does it. It's when Sookie is at Fantasia and she rats out the guy behind the bar, and then somebody stakes him, and like the blood like gushes.
Oh yeah, I think it was Bill or somebody.
Yeah. Bill. I guess Bill staked him.
Yeah, because that was Bill's punishment. Bill had that punishment from. That's when he first got introduced to the Magister.
Yeah.
Because Bill killed another vampire, and he had to create a vampire, which was Jessica.
Right.
As penance for doing that.
Right. Yeah.
But stuff like that definitely. Like I agree. I think I've been desensitized to violence by what do they call it? Media. Since I was a kid. But definitely on True Blood, it's you see a lot of that stuff, and it's not as shocking as it probably should be. But at the same time, some of the stuff is pretty shocking. I still get shocked by. And that's the thing. When it does shock me, it's cool to be shocked and to be like, okay, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, I think yeah, so my point was like when that scene happened, I found it to be over the top. Like I really didn't like watching it. It was gruesome. Like I think I sort of have a line, but I think for me the main thing that keeps True Blood from bothering me on that level is I think it has really good drama to go with the gore.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever the gore is happening, there's something dramatic going on. And it's working. And so I think because it feels like strong writing and good character stuff going on with the gore, it works. I think horror movies where they just have a lot of like death and mayhem and stuff, gruesome death, like, and not really good character writing or drama, that's where I really don't like watching it. It just feels kind of like a pointless exercise. But I think in True Blood they get drama, they get good stuff out of the gore scenes, and so I think that's why it works for me more so.
Yeah, totally. It's not gore for gore's sake. And a lot of people write off True Blood as just about sexy vampires and stuff. And
I think specific people write off the show that way.
Yeah, and it's not just about the sex and the violence and all that stuff. It's got a lot of other really cool elements and deep elements too, and good character stuff. And if it was just, a gore show, I don't think it'd be as interesting at all.
Yeah. Yeah, like I really I forget that there's such violence in the show a lot of the time.
And then they do it, right?
Yeah.
And then, then Bill, attacks some werewolves and
exactly.
Go, oh yeah, that's right. This is the show I'm watching. Where a guy is crawling on the ground naked with his leg torn off.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But it's because it's drawing me in on all the levels, and so there's definitely a lot more to it than that, and really I think you have these very powerful creatures, you have vampires who live on blood. I mean, violence is unavoidable in that context. I mean, I don't think you can not show it at all.
Hey, violence is a part of the natural world as anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, when you have conscious beings needing to be violent to survive, it's unavoidable.
Exactly, and also, they're very strong, very powerful. So the damage they can do is much more than humans can do normally. So it sort of goes beyond what you normally see in terms of violence.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, I really have seen worse, but it is pretty strong for a series.
Yeah. Totally.
I think the Eric Lafayette angle is interesting. I definitely, I got that point of, him learning, Eric started taking him under his wing a little bit and kind of teaching him how to be a dealer, how to be a better dealer, I guess.
Yeah.
And it works. I get it, like in terms of that one scene, but I don't really know where that's going. Is it just Lafayette's going to learn some lessons from Eric about how to be a better dealer? I mean, is there anything? I guess I don't really know what the point of that is.
He's going to learn some lessons, and that's Lafayette's storyline this season.
Okay.
The school's in session, and Lafayette's the only student. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, I think it's going to go someplace. I don't know exactly where. I mean, if I had to just make up something off the top of my head. I mean, honestly, this is probably just wishful thinking, but I feel like Eric is grooming Lafayette to be a vampire.
Oh, okay.
They
teased us with that at the beginning of season 2.
Mm-hmm.
When he was captured, and he was like, you can make me into a vampire.
Oh, totally, yeah.
So I think, that'd be interesting. I mean, I do think, like, probably at some point, some character is gonna be turned into a vampire.
I think it's going to be Lafayette or Tara, one of the two first.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds plausible.
And I think for both of them, even Franklin said this, and this might be why Eric hasn't done it yet to Lafayette, is, Franklin says he doesn't want to turn Tara because she wants him to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's part of it, too, is like, well, Lafayette wants to be a vampire, so I think there's some sort of thing where Eric doesn't want to turn him because of that, but
Yeah.
But I mean, I think he's going to be valuable enough to him where he's going to want to keep him around.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, he brought him that car.
Right.
I don't know why.
I don't either. Yeah, that's like part of this like Lafayette Eric thing that I just don't know. I don't know where they're going with that.
Mhm.
It's just it seems so open ended.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see a clear end point for that story.
Yeah, I mean, Eric's in trouble for selling the V. You know, is he just gonna push Lafayette to, you know, move whatever he has left? Like, is that all there? I don't know.
Yeah, something's gonna happen where he's got to get rid of probably the rest of the V that the Magister didn't find. I would love to know. We were talking about politics earlier. I would love to know the hierarchy here because I don't know why the Magister is above a king and queen.
Yeah, that sounds weird. And is there anyone above the Magister?
Yeah.
Like, how high does it go?
Yeah, I don't know if he's like the president of the United States. You know, is he the ultimate guy? I mean, I don't think he is. I think he's just regional, but at the same time,
I think you're right.
We really don't know exactly who else is. You know, is there anyone over the whole United States area, or is it just regional leaders?
Yeah, that's sort of what I was asking, like how high up it goes. In terms of like central authority. Because I feel like we already, with this King of Mississippi thing, like we already kind of have an idea of, you know, regional powers wanting their own things, you know, and to a certain extent being in conflict with each other. You know, so it comes across like, you know, maybe it is more sort of territorial like that, and there's just different domains, and they have to interact, but maybe they don't have a higher authority to appeal to. I mean, that's sort of how, you know, countries are right now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's sort of stuff, you know, UN and so on, but nothing with real sort of global authority. So it could be like that, but they haven't really told us. I think, it looks like the big plot going forward is what's up with this group of werewolves and the King of Mississippi, and what's he going to do with Bill, and why does he want Sookie, and, you know, all those things seem to be. I guess we learned in this episode that Franklin, the British vampire who has sort of kidnapped Tara, is working for the King of Mississippi, and he's trying to track down Sookie. Presumably for him.
Yeah, that's all I can think of. Seems like the story so far to me.
Yeah. So.
But he also seems to have this weird interest in Tara.
Yeah.
That I think was unexpected.
Right. Yeah. It seems like that wasn't necessarily part of the plan. He's just doing that. He's just doing that on his own, basically.
Talk about a character who's relentlessly beat up all the time.
Yeah.
Tara.
Yeah. She's really she's really had a shit couple of seasons.
Yeah, suicide's never the answer, but geez.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
You know, at this point, I don't know how much more she can take.
Yeah.
The whole being tied up and left on the toilet there was pretty bad.
It was. Yeah, and season 1 she had that whole thing with her mom and the demon and going to the exorcist woman, and you know, that it's basically just like her horrendous past and relationship with her mom, which was horrible. Which was pretty bad. And then in season 2, she falls in with Marianne and ends up, you know, among other things, eating someone's heart, I guess Daphne's, and, you know, engaging in all sorts of ridiculous, over-the-top activity against her will and against her friends and so on. And eventually, of course, Eggs dies as well, so it's just a big shitstorm for her last season. And then she immediately moves from that into being captured by this vampire.
Mm-hmm.
And fed on and just kind of herded around for a purpose she doesn't understand and glamored. And, yeah, I don't know. I agree. At a certain point, you got to ask yourself if your life is worth living.
Right?
There's I think there's a point where it's reasonable to say no.
Mhm.
And she's getting pushed pretty far.
She is. She really, really is.
Because like after last season, it just seems like I can't believe they're doing more stuff to her.
Mhm. Yeah, she did not get a break at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, all Sam has to deal with is being a shapeshifter and then having this family that's not that great.
Yeah, he's just got kind of an annoying family. And okay, maybe his brother tried to kill him once, but
yeah,
you know, for the most part, it's just kind of, you know, an annoyance.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's gone well beyond that, you know. And I thought it was great that he basically glamours her into letting him in.
Mhm.
You know, whereas that for vampires are strong, but that's a weakness they have. If you can somehow get yourself in a house and not let them in, they can't come in.
Yeah.
And
well, I guess you have to own the house, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, whatever the technicalities are, I mean, they don't make any sense to me. But yeah, I mean, if you can somehow get into your house, whatever that means, you know, you have to let him in.
It's like, oh no, I rent this place.
I mean, I want it. You know, in Eric's fantasy, he has Sookie let him in, and I don't think she's supposed to be in her house. I want to say it's sort of something beyond ownership. Like it's somehow, you know, you have to possess the place. I think that was in Sam's fantasy too with Bill. Like he had to let him into his like hotel room that he was in. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the idea is it's sort of your place then, but not some kind of like you got to own the title or something.
Show me the deed. Let me see the signature. All right.
As much fun as that would be, I think it's sort of like whatever building you're I mean, when I try to make it work, it doesn't, which is why it frustrates me, but I think that's kind of what it is. You know, the structure you're occupying is protected.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a nice little caveat. It's really the only protection a human has against a vampire. That and, you know, daylight.
Right. And if you can somehow manage to, you know, catch them with a, you know, silver necklace or stake them or something, you know, but that's a shot in the dark. Yeah. Since they're much faster and stronger and more perceptive and stuff, it's hard to actually get the upper hand.
Mhm.
It's really good to see Captain Galt again.
It is. It is nice to see him again.
I always felt like he got a really. I was really disappointed in his death in season 4. I realize that this character is not Captain Galt. Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. But somehow it feels like
he will always be Captain Galt.
Yeah.
Even though I saw him on other shows before he was Captain Galt, he still will always be Captain Galt.
Yeah. He made an impact with that character. Yeah. It was really well done.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't do all that much, but somehow it fit in, you know. And he was don't trust the captain guy.
I like to think Captain Galt died and went to the gym and then became this guy.
Yeah.
Because he seems really ripped compared to, I mean, not that Captain Galt ever had his shirt off, but I only have to assume that the actor got into better shape for this role.
You're probably right. Yeah. The werewolf thing seems to be they're basically like bikers, you know, but they're werewolves. They don't necessarily ride motorcycles.
Yeah.
You know,
they have all fours.
Like, yeah. like culturally they're sort of bikers, and I guess they have their. In general, I mean, what we're seeing is kind of an aberration, but in general, they're supposed to be kind of secretive, keep to themselves kind of people.
It's almost saying, like, if you know a biker, they might be a werewolf.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up, like the idea that somehow that's what bikers are.
Yeah,
or
it's almost, I mean, they're
bikers
definitely
are
drawn to whatever edgy darkness that bikers represent, you know.
Yeah.
Sort of anarchistic, or whatever the adjective is. And,
yeah.
You know, very, like, separated from mainstream society, kind of.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And pack-like, too. That's another reason they probably went with bikers, is they're very, you know, they ride around together and pack.
That's right.
Pretty much, so.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah. It does. But it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
it definitely makes them, like, stand out from the vampires. You know, because the vampires are really not like that at all.
No. Yeah, no, vampires are pretty much loners.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they have, you know, modern vampire culture, obviously they gather at Fantasia and stuff like that, but
right.
in general, they're more or less loners.
Right. But even Fantasia is not really like a biker bar. It's more of a kind of slick and sleazy stripper place. You know, it's a very different vibe. I don't think the werewolves are really like Fantasia.
No.
I think, yeah, in general, like, vampires are sort of slicker and more refined.
Yeah,
and they sort of brought up the idea that with Alcide, like, he said something like werewolves run hot. Like, I guess I interpreted that they have really high metabolism. Which I would think would sort of cause them to, you know, go out and kind of consume things.
Yeah, and I think there was something about body temperature with Sam and what's her name, and Daphne too, right?
Oh,
I thought
yeah.
there was something about them being hot.
That's right. I forgot about
that. So I think, you know, like I said, you know, the werewolves are shapeshifters who can only shapeshift into wolves. So.
And, of course, vampires run cold.
Yeah, vampires are cold because they don't have any blood pumping.
Yeah.
Through their body, so it makes sense that they're cold and they're dead too. So.
Right.
Yeah, but I did like that contrast that Alcide, you know, Sookie was like, "Oh, you're so warm," you know.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I don't know. They run a couple degrees hotter.
Yeah. 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 So I think. Yeah, you might be right, but I want to say, you know, there's certain if the full moon thing's true, you know, I want to say there's certain things that werewolves have. Maybe it's just problems or whatever to deal with that shapeshifters don't.
Well, yeah, I think each special species is going to have its own qualities and own, like, characteristics that it has to adhere to.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's the other thing I was going to bring up? What's the other thing they're doing? There was some specific plot I was going to bring up. Let's see. What haven't we mentioned yet?
Sam and his family. There's,
Sam and his family.
Look at
That's what it is. Yeah. So that's kind of a carryover from last season, but you know, Sam was adopted, and I guess his parents abandoned him when they found out he was a shapeshifter, or when he started showing that he was a shapeshifter or something. Maybe they knew, I guess. I don't know. I didn't quite catch what exactly happened there, but somehow he was abandoned by his parents, and so he tracks down his real family this season, and his mom seems to, she's a shapeshifter. I guess his dad is not, and he has a brother who is able to shapeshift as well. And seems like his mom is, pretty happy to see him, pretty accepting. But his brother is kind of resentful that he has a nicer life, I guess, and actually tries to kill him at a certain point. His dad is just kind of aloof. I really don't know what's going on with him. But then they show up at the bar and just kind of hang out outside, and basically just, I guess they get evicted, something like that, and so Sam offers them a place to stay, and so I guess I guess this is just Sam sort of dealing with his past, but I really don't know where they're going with that. Is it just family drama? Is that all there is to that, or are they actually gonna do something with that beyond, plot wise?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's so far it's just family drama. I think they're gonna develop something with Sam taking care or bonding more with his brother. I think that seems to be what they're going for. Maybe getting the mom and dad out of the picture, and then maybe having the brother work at Merlotte's or something. They had the little thing about, Jessica starting to work there, which we knew that was a matter of time. They joked about it in that one scene with Sookie left, and it's like, yeah, you guys are joking about it because you're going to do it. Mm-hmm. And so she's the waitress now, and Sam told her you can't serve alcohol because you got to be over 21. And so I think the brother is, and if the brother is, that makes me think maybe Sam will get him to be the bartender or something, or get him some reason to work there. That's the only storyline I see is them getting closer. I don't know what else in terms of just sort of outside drama that's not just family stuff that would be going on. But it's the kind of stuff that they if it's going to happen, they'll throw in at some point. So it's kind of hard to see if that's going to happen until they do it. But. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so far it just seems like family drama, nothing crazy, no big, I don't know, unless there's some secrets about shape-shifting the brother's going to tell Sam or vice versa or something like that, Right. Yeah, I guess they could do that. I forgot that there's stuff there. You're bringing up the Jessica thing. It reminds me of something about vampires that I haven't mentioned yet, which is for me, like age laws about alcohol and stuff like that, voting, renting cars, driving, etc. To me, that stuff is more about maturity, like having the capacity to handle the responsibility that comes with maturity, and not sort of the fact that you've physically aged that much. It's a marker. Like everyone doesn't necessarily mature at the same time, but you use age as a kind of crude way to say if you're beyond this age, chances are you can handle this responsibility. Not necessarily true. Then there's legal attachments to things like that, because 18, you're an adult, you're on your own, you're not your parents' responsibility. Yeah. So there's legal parts to that too. Yeah. Right. But it's part of the same sort of maturity thing. Yeah. Right. So I guess for me, I guess I can buy that Jessica can't serve alcohol, but I feel like she should be able to in a few years. Well, honestly, she made a great point. She's like, I'm a vampire, I'll never be 18, and I think that basically tells him right then and there that sort of age thing is really arbitrary and really doesn't apply to her. I think, whatever her birthday is, if she's 17 and a half, then I figure in 6 months he should be able to let her serve. Whatever point, I think she should be able to serve now, but I think at whatever point she would have been 18, because obviously she is still, she's not aging physiologically, but she is accumulating time on Earth, being on Earth. So she will have 18 years of being on Earth. So
that's
at whatever point that is, that should be fine. I mean, I honestly, if you're going to get crazy and go into the legal aspects, I think there's probably lawyers in that True Blood world who are going to have interesting times with their legal cases in terms of, well, Your Honor, I know my client murdered 5 people for their blood, but he's only 12, even though he's been around for 100 years, Don't try him as an adult because he looks 12, even though he's been around 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
He should have 100 years of maturity, right?
Right.
In a general sense. So.
Yes. Because that's what I'm trying to say. Like, to me, the essential thing is the maturity level, which comes from experiences and memories and learning how to deal with life, basically. And I think that's happening whether the physical aging is or not.
Yeah, I honestly think she made a good point right off the bat, and I think Sam's practical enough to accept that. I think he's going to cover his bases legally, but in terms of just like whether or not he would do it, law aside, I think he would let her serve. She's the vampire. She made her case very succinctly.
I mean, she's never going to not look the age that she is, but I think, whenever she's around for that long, she'll still be at that point whether she looks like it or not.
Yeah.
So I think but the other thing I wanted to bring up is, like, the Bill and Sookie relationship, and, if they ever did it, the Eric and Sookie relationship would be even more ridiculous in this regard. It's usually considered sort of a drastic thing when they show, say, 50, 60-year-old man with, say, 20-year-old woman, 25, something like that. It's usually considered a pretty big gap. But mentally, Bill is, like 150 or something? Like,
pretty close, yeah.
I mean, he's, and Sookie is, again, like 20-something, 25, whatever. Like, that's huge, in terms of life experience. Like, that's a giant gap. And, of course, if you bring in Eric, it's insane, the kind of disparity in that relationship. It really doesn't come across, I think, partially because, the actual actor who plays Bill is not that old, so it doesn't feel like such a gap. But I think, if you rationalize sort of what's going on, like, it really is, like, a huge disparity.
Well, you know what that tells me? The way they portray it and the way pretty much all vampires are sort of portrayed, it almost seems like there is there's a limit to maturity in a way. I mean, obviously you can always keep learning things and you can always sort of grow as a person or something. Godric did, of course, later in his life he changed his philosophy. You can always do that, but it seems like in terms of age and in terms of, it's not like you can talk to Eric and then talk to Bill and say, I can tell Bill's 150 and I can tell Eric's 1,000 by virtue of their personality. I feel like there's some sort of ceiling to whatever you would call, I want to say maturity, but whatever you would call that culmination of age. That's not a factor of your experiences, or I should say just a factor of your experiences, because you can change who you are and stuff like that. But I think that's why it doesn't play like a May-December romance. It doesn't play like you look at Sookie and Bill and go, wow, she seems so young compared to him or something.
Yeah.
It's because personality-wise, it seems like after his 50 years of living or whatever, he's not that much different in the last 100 years. But aside from experiences that have happened, he's going to accumulate more experiences and change because of that. He has his time in the 40s or whenever with Lorena, and he kills people and he likes it, and then later he decides that's a bad idea. So obviously, there's still character growth, but in terms of like the age factor playing, it seems like there's a ceiling to that.
Yes. No, you're right. I mean, I think that's the way they're writing it. But I feel like there's kind of an issue with the fact that this is written by humans, that, humans don't really live longer than 100 or so years. Normally, very rare. So there's really no frame of reference. Bill's on the borderline of someone maybe you could portray realistically, but there for Eric or Godric, like there's no frame of reference for someone who's been around that long. You know, like what would someone be like who's been around that long? Like I don't think anyone really knows because there's no one like that we know of.
Yeah.
You know, so I think there's sort of a limit to what they can really bring across. Like I really think if someone were around that long, there would be some kind of limit, but I think it's beyond, you know, it's beyond the human limit.
Mhm.
You know, of what we've reached.
Well, I don't know. Is a person who's 100 years old a lot different than a person who's 40? You know, I mean, that's a pretty big jump.
Yeah. You
know, I feel like the big difference...
I mean, I think they are. I mean, that's, you know... I do think there is a difference.
But the difference is really about the experiences and what they learn from it, right? It's like, if you live an extra 100 years, that's just 100 more years of experiences you can have. And you can do something interesting with that or not. You know, you can fundamentally change through that 100 years or not, depending on what you do, you know.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Look at Eric now versus Eric before he was turned into a vampire.
Yes.
You know, he's definitely a sort of a different person. You know, and I guess my point is, you just sort of get more experiences, and then that's going to change you and decide more than just the amount of time. You know, because you can go. You know, if somebody goes to spend. You know, if someone spent that 1,000 years as a vampire isolated alone on an island by themselves, you know, they're obviously going to have an interesting, decided personality, but that doesn't mean they're going to get this wealth of experiences that's going to change them like somebody else would. So
right.
It's still kind of like, it depends on the person how much they're gonna really change. So I feel like you can guess how somebody. I mean, this is just a thought. It's obviously not factually true, but I feel like you can guess what someone who's 1,000 is going to be like, because it's really just if you can know what their experiences are, you know, and as a writer you can extrapolate how that would change them. Then I feel like you can get a close idea. But yeah, nobody really knows if living 1,000 years has some extra psychological consequence that you can only glean if you've done that, you know, from experience, you know. But I feel like it should be the same way. Someone who's 18 versus someone who's 100, like it's the difference is their life experiences. You know, that the person who's 100 should have learned more lessons, should have made mistakes, should have learned from other people's mistakes, and should have an outlook based on that, you know.
Yeah.
That the 18-year-old is not going to have because they haven't gone through those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, I think, you know, humans just really, I don't think we can really think on that time scale. I mean, we can say, here's how it would be, but I think we're just not equipped for lifespans like that and to really conceptualize, would it be just like ours, only longer, or would it be, you know, a very different experience if you really had that kind of time on your hands? You know, I think there's potential that it could be different than just basically the same, you know, as it is for being human. But even if it were exactly like being human, but longer, I think still, you know, the accumulation of experiences would be so much greater, and I think it would make that person much more, you know, especially with vampires, where you don't have physical degeneration. You know, you probably have pretty good memory throughout the time. They, you know, so they really learn from their experiences. They retain them, and I think you really have potential for someone to develop into a very, you know, experienced, knowledgeable kind of person, you know, that you just don't have time for when you have a normal lifespan. Yeah.
And again, I would agree with that, but I think that's something you can take into account if you're writing a character that's old, because, you know, at the like I said, unless there is some psychological element that becomes apparent after X amount of time that no human can imagine because we've never done it, unless there's this X factor out there, then I feel like the only difference is more experiences. And in terms of writing, if you know what those experiences are, then you can come up with a character that's realistically like that. But like you're saying, it may be something else. And if there is something else, then of course we're missing. Now, you're missing that. But you have to say that it's it's not just being a human, but longer. It's not just more experiences. It's more experiences, and it makes you like this. It gives you this specific thing that you can't imagine. Because
right.
no one has done it yet. But I feel like it should just be more experiences. I mean, like I said, I feel like it should be the same way 18 to 100, but maybe it's not.
Well, I mean, I think that would be the difference, but I think that's a big difference. I mean, to me, it's even more dramatic when you say 10 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the same scale as 100 to 1,000.
Yeah, but
if you think about a 10-year-old versus a 100-year-old, I mean,
that's
a huge difference.
Like, it's not an exponential growth or scale. You know what I mean? Like at a certain point, it is. From the time you're born to the time you're 10, you're changing. So drastically. By the time you're 10 to 20, you're still changing a lot. I don't think you're necessarily changing as drastically, and especially not in the same areas. And 10 to 30 is a change, but I think, what I'm saying? I feel like the longer you go, the less exponential or the less steep the increase and the change in your personality behavior. Now, that's just my opinion of how I see it. It doesn't mean that when you hit 500, something happens and you go exponentially more experience. It's something like that can happen in the curve of 1,000-year life. Who knows until you get to that point, but just charting out, and generally so that's what I'm saying. I feel like there's a ceiling to maturity or to experiences or something where you're going to continually be changed by that. But if you're charting it or something, it's not going to just continually to go up the same amount or the same rate all the time. Because the 10 years from 2 years old to 12 years old is a lot of different increase than 80 to 90 or 90 to 100, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like the older you get, the less changes you're getting on that level, and the more it's really just about what experiences you're having. And my example of that is in True Blood. Is the king says Lorena is very unrefined for a vampire her age.
Yeah.
He says that she shouldn't behave as petty as she is. Age should have made her, the age and her experiences should have made her more. And if you look at the king and then his partner, they do have that sort of laid back, more refined attitude. They're not really threatening. They don't need to be because they have the experiences to
confidence.
The confidence, and they've been in situations like this before. They know when to be aggressive and when not to. So I feel like that's realistic. I feel like they are taking that into account. And so I feel like, again, unless there's some weird X factor in psychology that you can only find out by living that long, then I think that people get it fairly right.
Yeah, I just think no. For True Blood, okay, what they do is fine. I'm not criticizing the show. The characters they have there are fine and could even be justified. If you want to fill in what Eric or the King of Mississippi's experiences were, you could probably say, well, here's how they developed, and here's how the reason why they're like they are now. And that probably works fine. Okay. Mm-hmm. But setting that aside, I mean, I think if you had a creature develop, evolutionarily to have, say, to sort of naturally have something like 1,000-year lifespan, I mean, you could potentially have, it's well known that, babies learn really rapidly and children somewhat less so, but still very fast, and then it decreases. I mean, that's what you were getting at earlier. I mean, if you have something with a 1,000-year lifespan, I mean, I don't see any reason why that period couldn't be stretched out more, and they could take in even more.
Well, here's the reason: physiologically, I mean, there's plenty of reasons why it shouldn't be stretched out. Number one is because they only get turned into a vampire after a certain age. So, you know,
well, I'm not talking about vampires.
Oh, what are you talking
I'm talking about, so that's why I'm trying to, like, set aside True Blood, because I think, you know, the characters there, and the idea of vampires is sort of different because...
Well, but that's the whole, I see what you're saying. If it's just a person who, that's what, I feel like you wouldn't stretch out their lifespan like that, and then every increment of their growth, you know, expands in proportion. I feel like that's not the natural. I mean, I feel like the whole point of, you know, how humans and most sort of infants develop is they try to be as self-sufficient as possible as quickly as possible. And it'd be weird that, okay, if the average lifespan of a human is 100, and they learn the fastest in the first 2 years. I mean, that's the way it is
now. That's certainly not the way it is, you know, in the wild, so to speak. I mean, it's that way only because of technology and advances in, like, understanding how disease works and nutrition.
Wait, what are you saying isn't like that?
I'm saying, what?
I didn't get the subject. You were saying something isn't like that. What subject were you talking about?
I don't remember.
Well, I was saying if the average lifespan of a human is say 100 years.
Oh, I was saying that's sort of artificial. Like, it isn't really. I mean, it's only that because of these, you know, developments in various knowledge.
I'm just setting up a hypothetical to your point that if I'm just saying hypothetically, let's say, I mean, the lifespan of any species is going to be dependent on a lot of things, and the environment is number one, and our environment is technologically advanced, therefore we can do that. But I'm just saying in general, say if it's 100 years, even when I'm just trying to get easy numbers for my example here. If it's 100 years, and then you're saying, and then, you know, say humans learn the fastest in the first 10, and then it tapers off, then if you're saying now in some other scenario a human is going to live 1,000 years, therefore, the first 100 years they learn the fastest or something.
Yeah.
Like to me that could be true. I don't know, but to me that doesn't necessarily gel with just the natural fact of that 10 year, you know, that period of time, you know, physiologically it's designed to do that. You know, and basically you're slowing down their aging over time. Basically, that's kind of what you're doing is almost like slowing down how time affects them. And I feel like time would affect them the same way. Like they need to learn as fast as in 10 years. If you live 1,000 years, then is when you do 100 years. So I'm just saying, I don't know
on the environment, but I guess
why it would slow down. But
what I'm saying is, like, okay, dogs basically reach adulthood in 1 year, okay? Mm-hmm. And if they could talk, they could get together and say, you know, what are humans doing being kids for, you know, 10 years, whatever? You know, what can they possibly be getting out of all that time? You know, I mean, they could stand there and say that. You know, how does that work? Why would that arise? I mean, they could stand there and say that.
A fly could say that about a dog. A fly reaches adulthood, you know, in a day or whatever, hours.
Yeah.
And a fly could be like, well, what's a dog spending a year reaching adulthood for?
Yeah, so, I mean, we can stand here and say, what are they doing? Well, you know, it's the environment that creates those circumstances, you know. And if you're talking, like, I'm being very speculative and talking about, like, not necessarily Earth, but, you know, some environment where you have life arising. You know, I feel like it's not out of the question to have a creature with a longer childhood than humans.
Sure, that's
ridiculous to even say, because we already have examples.
Of course, and my point is, the point of that acclimation period is to be ready for life in that environment, right? That's sort of the point.
Yeah.
And so so you can't say it's a human then. It's somebody else in some other planet that in their planet they need 100 years to get ready. Yeah, that's totally fine. But what I'm saying is, if you're taking a human being and giving them 1,000-year lifespan, I still think they need to be ready to be an adult in the same amount of time, not at that 100 years. That they still need to have that 10-year period.
Yes.
Or 18 or whatever year period.
Point taken.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I'm wondering a bit in just making the point that the idea of 1,000-year lifespan really could lead to a drastically different outcome.
It could. It definitely could. And my point is, it should only do that if there's unforeseen elements that arise later down the road.
Right.
But barring that, it should just be a product of your experiences that decides how you're going to be, what your personality is.
Yeah.
And that is something you can guess at. And if you're writing a character, someone could plot out the major life choices of a character every year or every month for 1,000 years.
They can.
Really
they can.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, the only thing that I would say is there's no real model you can point to and say, this has some kind of basis in reality. You're just making stuff up. I mean, whereas with someone, leading an ordinary human life, you really can at least point to real people doing those things and say, this is a realistic sort of, set of life experiences for someone.
Yeah. At a certain point, you're extrapolating, of course. Yeah, I mean, you can guess what someone who's 200 years old might be like, and should be closer to the truth than if you guess what someone who's 1,000 or 1,000,000 years old would be like. Yeah,
exactly.
I definitely think that's true.
And I also will concede that you're probably right that just as there's sort of a tapering effect. The difference between 50 and 60 is not as big as the difference between 0 and 10 or 10 and 20. That's certainly true. I would expect that once you get to be 500 years old, you should have learned some large percentage amount of things to learn, and there's only so many things to learn and experiences to have anyway that, from 500 years and then from 600 years, how much extra are you really learning that you haven't experienced yet? All other things being equal, you're as long as you're not like spending 500 years isolated and your last 100 years you're with people or something, I think potentially, you could say that at a certain point it's like 10 years, 100 years, they just go by. I barely notice, and because I think that's how time sort of starts running, for most people when they get older. So I think, and particularly because vampires really were humans, I think it makes sense to treat them that way. I mean, that's why I was sort of setting True Blood aside, because I think, now that you've drawn it out, it sort of makes sense for these characters to develop like that. On the other hand, I will say, I think, just as I said with, like, Jacob, I think, given someone having the ability to live that long and, not aging, not succumbing to physical ailments and mental ailments and having memory problems and stuff, I think human potential, for a vampire, would be larger. I mean, I would expect that if a vampire wanted to, they could really take things a lot further than any humans have in terms of knowledge.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I mean, the culmination of something like that, I mean, to be able to spend 100 years on various related disciplines to study them, I want to study physics for 100 years and math for 100 years, and now I'm going to come up with a grand unified theory of everything. You might have something there, if you have the mental capabilities to do that, and of course the time. Right. Yeah, I definitely think they could take things further.
That's the kind of thing, and I feel like that could also come along with a kind of, a sort of different kind of emotional maturity that maybe most people don't really get to. If you get to the point where you sort of understand the universe better than anyone who's ever lived, like that, that I think that would put you in a certain position that might, have an effect on you. I guess I'm saying I could see it happening, but I think for the specific characters that we're dealing with on True Blood, that probably hasn't happened. And so I think what we're dealing with on True Blood is certain characters who kind of hit a stasis, and they've sort of been who they are for a while, and they're really not changing because they're kind of happy with who they are.
Yeah, and just because you have the ability to grow to that level doesn't mean you will.
Exactly.
You can, you can spend 1,000 years on Earth and never learn more about the nature of the universe than anybody else who lived.
Right.
It just depends.
Right. Right. I guess maybe my main point is I think, you know, I kind of enjoyed the little bit in season 1 when Sookie's grandmother had Bill come and like talk to them about the Civil War. I thought that was a cool example of like really using the fact that these vampires are really old and they've seen stuff that, you know, for us in the real world, you know, we don't get to talk to people who lived through those things. You know, that's just cool. Like having someone who lived through these you know, really pivotal historical events. You know, I mean, it would be really cool to have that, and I think, you know, they took that seriously there. But I think for the most part, it really doesn't play like that. I think that's basically my point. Like the experiences they've had over these large periods of time don't feel like they really come into play very much.
Well, and I have to say, part of it I think is because vampires are very what's the word? I mean, they're very content with their sort of lives. I mean, you know, Eric and those guys at Fantasia are really just kind of happy to do their Fantasia thing and have sex and sort of be, you know, I feel like they're not intrinsically aspiring to transcend, given their powers and the ability to live indefinitely. You know, they're really just and it might just be because they were formerly human, you know.
Yeah.
They're really just sort of content to carve out a life that they feel happy with, and that's about it. They're not really trying to go for a lot.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree.
You know, and part of it has to just do with, you know, what vampires, you know, just as a species are designed for. They like that stuff, so they're content with that stuff. I mean, you could have a weird supernatural species that, you know, when a human gets turned into them, they just want to be the best, you know, species ever. You know, they want to be the most intelligent, cognitive being in the universe, and that's all they do is strive for that. You know, that could be something, and that would have a totally different outcome.
Yes. Yeah.
But they like Fantasia.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So all right, so we had that discussion.
Yeah, that was a lot. But I think it's, you know, True Blood operates. It's one of the outgrowths of the world that True Blood has given us. You know, it really. I mean, I guess Mary Ann, you know, might be the oldest character they've ever had. And you know, she went back to, I don't know, 800 BC, something like that. I mean, ridiculous, you know.
Yeah.
Most shows don't really give you that kind of stuff. And not just, you know, not just these obscure kind of mythical background characters like Jacob or something, but, you know, really like main characters you spend a lot of time with. You know, who have lived through, you know, huge portions of human history, and so I mean, to me, it's just kind of a weird spin-off from the way the show is, you know.
Yeah.
We don't usually get characters like that in TV shows.
Yeah.
I mean, Eric is supposed to have been like a Viking, right?
He's a Viking. Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. A Viking is alive. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody tell the Smithsonian.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, oh man, questions.
Yeah, it looks like when Godric says, I you know, I didn't get to know your Jesus. I didn't get to meet him. I could have.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I was alive at the same time. He could have potentially been there and reported exactly what happened. I mean, that's just amazing. That's the kind of stuff.
Yeah, somebody could have turned one of Jesus' disciples into a vampire, and that disciple could be alive and could have first-hand account, literally, of what was going on.
Exactly. And that's just, I think with the Civil War thing, they barely scratched the surface on that, because, you know, that's fairly well recorded in history. You know, stuff like, you go back that far, and you're really getting stuff that we don't have. Yeah. And that's just, I mean, I know that's sort of beside the point of the plot and all that, but
wait, isn't True Blood a historical drama? I thought I was watching.
Really? Yeah, I don't think it is.
I'm waiting for the nude Abraham Lincoln sex dream.
Oh man!
Or 7 years ago, indeed.
Wow.
Talk about the Gettysburg Address, right? I love how these are innuendos that make this mean nothing, but in this context, it's something. Emancipation Proclamation.
Wow.
He's emancipating something, all right.
I bet those of you who started listening to this podcast had no idea we'd end up with Abraham Lincoln sex jokes. I don't think anyone saw that coming.
Nobody.
At least I hope
no one
not.
saw that. No.
Wow. We got there, though. And it made sense if you followed it.
If you followed it, yeah, unfortunately.
There was a chain there. Wow.
Stovepipe hat in my ass.
You're just gonna pull out every Abraham Lincoln
I know everything, right? Foreign theater, ladies and gentlemen. We know what's going on there. What? I don't know.
Wow. I don't think you missed any.
Well, there's John Wilkes Booth, something about his wife, and I think that's it.
Yeah.
Being from Illinois, and I don't know. That's about it.
And being a Republican.
I hit the big one.
Party of Lincoln.
Yeah.
They'll never let you forget it.
Mm-mm. All right. Well, anything else with True Blood we wanna hit before we wrap it up? I guess we never figured out what 9 Crimes was. What are the 9 Crimes?
Yeah, that's a good question. What the fuck? That's a weird title. I don't know what True Blood does with their titles. They have some weird ones sometimes.
I almost feel like it's some sort of play on 9 Lives, but it's for the werewolves.
Oh, okay.
Who are committing crimes. I don't really know. I can't really. Who is committing crimes? Are there 9 crimes in the episode or something? Like each character has a crime or something?
What are the crimes? I mean, can you name a crime that happened?
Well, you got the Magister finding out about the V being sold.
Okay,
good. Something with the werewolves crime there. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're sort of criminal-esque. You got
I guess
Franklin
you got
doing
Franklin.
stuff.
Yeah, kidnapping.
Tommy tried to steal some stuff from Sam.
Oh, yeah.
That was kind of the last episode.
That was in the last episode, yeah.
Yeah, but still.
He was just trying to steal money, right?
I guess so.
Was that? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what they said, at least.
Okay.
I don't know if there was 9 of anything. That's sort of the...
Yeah, I don't see that. Maybe it is supposed to be some weird reference to 9 Lives. 9 Lives, 9 Crimes. I just want to see what the other... Okay, so the first episode was called Bad Blood. I guess that makes sense. Second episode, Beautifully Broken. Okay. I don't even remember what that episode was about. And then the third one was It Hurts Me Too. That works. Okay. Those are just very vague, and they just kind of fit in. 9 Crimes seems really specific. It seems like 9 Crimes should refer to something.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and it's like 9 to number 9.
Yeah, not spelled out. Yeah, if you're going to number something, I mean, it seems like you should have something in mind.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe Bill getting that stripper at the end. I mean, maybe that's sort of a crime.
Okay.
I know that was a weird little bit. Like they mentioned that he used to be a what do they call it, procurer or something? Is that what the word was?
Mhm.
Like, I don't ever remember knowing that.
I don't either, unless is he said that's what he did for the Queen? Did he say that's what his job was for the Queen in particular?
Yeah, I think that's what he said. I'm not sure.
I mean, and I don't know what that means. I mean, I guess he sort of helped procure for Lorena, right? I mean, I guess there was a time or two he sort of saw him get people. I mean, I almost feel like he didn't mean procure in the way that we see him do it. But I don't know what they mean.
Yeah, I guess I thought they did mean the way we see him doing it. Like, I guess I thought the idea was, there's certain. I mean, I don't even remember seeing this before. This was all news to me. But I'm not a careful watcher, so maybe I missed it. The idea seemed to be that there's these appointed people who go out and acquire humans to feed on, and they're called procurers. I mean, that was my takeaway from.
Yeah, it's either that or the opposite, which is that he procured stuff for the Queen, sort of maybe people, but not specifically people, other things she might need. And I kind of thought the king was just sort of being tongue-in-cheek by saying, well, since you're a procurer, why don't you go procure us some dinner? I could see it being him just sort of using that phrase as in terms of the story that, so either they're telling us that's what a procura is and they're saying something about vampire mythology, or he's just being tongue-in-cheek or something. So I don't know which one it is. I guess we'll see.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
But it's just the way he said it made me think he's just being, he's just being sly by saying, well, why don't you procure some dinner? Because that's kind of how he used it. So, it could be that he did that for the Queen, but we definitely never saw that, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, that there seems to be a need for that. Obviously, the Queen had a ton of people to drink from when we saw her mansion or whatever, her palace. She had a ton of people. So obviously there's someone who goes to get those people, and obviously some of those people volunteer or whatever because they like that. But in general, yeah, we'll see if that's supposed to be what the term is.
Yeah. Do you think this season ends with Bill and Sookie back together?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. All right. I guess I'm not 100% sure what exactly they're gonna do with that. I mean, I do think Bill is gonna probably get out of the trouble he's in, but I'm not really sure where that leaves him and Sookie at the end of the season. I think we probably agree that at some point, Tara's in trouble right now, but at some point, presumably she'll get out of trouble and learn what happened with Eggs, that Jason shot him, and possibly other people will find that out as well. I guess Jason's going to be a cop for a while, take the shortcut with Andy, and, that'll go somewhere. But once everybody finds out, I know what the end is. Will he be celebrated as a hero, or will it backfire? Will he stop being a cop?
I don't think the town. Yeah, I could kind of see him becoming a cop, and then people find out, and then he has to stop being a cop because of that. But they might want him. They might want him a cop through next season. I don't know. Since they need people on the police force, and it seems like a good fodder for storyline to have him with Andy.
Right.
But I almost feel like the townspeople aren't going to care that much as it's going to be a problem for his relationship with Tara.
Okay.
And Sookie. Sookie's going to be surprised, too.
Right.
Although I got to say, she really could just read his mind and find out, but she obviously tries not to do that to people, but...
Yeah. Yeah. I guess she can control it to a certain extent. I remember I used to have the impression it just happened and she couldn't really control it.
I think the idea thing is she actively tries not to listen. It's hard. It's like her default is for that power to be on and active, but she has to actively and willfully not hear people's thoughts. But, the way it comes off, especially recently, it just seems like she's not trying to not listen to people. So it seems like it's just sort of off all the time. But I really think the idea is she's, that was the whole reason she liked Bill, was because she didn't have to try to not listen around him. She just didn't hear anything. She could just let go and not hear anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that was the idea. Yeah, okay. Well, I think that's all I have.
All righty. Well, we'll be back with some more True Blood episodes, I'm sure, in the future at some point. This season is pretty crazy. A lot of cool stuff going on. At this point, it's really hard to see exactly where all the storylines are going, but going someplace fun.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they'll probably throw in a twist or two.
Mhm. Yeah, probably.
I'm just guessing.
Yeah, well, that's a crazy guess. Totally out of left field. A twist on a TV show? Whoa. I'm calling Hollywood right now. You know what you guys should try? A twist. Cool. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Hopefully this was fun for you to listen to, and hopefully you've seen True Blood and you weren't totally spoiled by everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Even if you were, it's still worth watching, so you can go back and see the stuff that you were spoiled on. Yeah.
I mean, we may have spoiled some of the plot, but as usual in most TV shows, I mean, the plot is one level, but, it's worth watching for a lot of other reasons.
Mhm.
So,
Abraham Lincoln sex scenes.
Exactly.
See, now there's sex scenes. First thing he starts screaming, and now he's actually having sex with people. The Founding Father orgy scene, right?
Right. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You were already verging on American blasphemy, and now you brought in a Founding Father orgy.
Wow, American blasphemy. I like that title.
Yep.
Could be the title of some album or something.
Oh, I guess it kind of sounds like that.
Yeah, Green Day, where are you? They'd be all over that one, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's so them.
Yeah. I know. I'm totally desecrating the memory of the Founding Fathers.
Yeah.
But the Tea Partiers do it every day, so I figured I could.
Oh.
And with that, we're out.
All right, guys. See you later.
Bye.